Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey fellas, welcome to our Team House New Year's Roundup, kind of annual tradition we do around here.
And Philals for our three female viewers out there.
Yeah, good verb conjugation. Yeah, I looked at it. We're almost at 4% female viewership. We're going places, Dave.
What? Look, we'll probably be doing a calendar next year.
A tasteful calendar. So yeah, this is kind of a tradition for us. We do a show at the end of the year, kind of wrap up everything that we've done over the year, talk about each guest a little bit, and in case you guys missed anything during the year, and some comments, some commentary, bitches, gripes, complaints, and we'll try to take as many questions as we can. We have a bunch from Patreon and et cetera. We'll also try to take as many questions from the chat as we can as well. So I don't know what your thoughts are, Dave, D, but 2022, like, it was exciting for me. There were a lot of people we had on that I've been trying to get on for a long time. Mm-hmm. So like we've been doing this like a little over 3 years, and there were some people that I had been working on for like 2 years that I finally got on the show. So I was excited about that. Looking back, the whole roster over the year, I mean, it's like pat ourselves on the back. You guys done good.
Yeah, we're the best podcast around. That's it.
So
that's all I have to say.
2022, we had 4.7 million viewers. The top 3 vids was actually, the number one was from last year, Bleeding Over. It was the Tony Brooks interview about the Rangers searching for Marcus Luttrell. The second largest, biggest viewed video was a clip D made of Dale Comstock's episode, The Murky World of Mercenaries. And then the third most viewed video was also a clip. It was the different identities of SEAL Team 6 taken from the Matthew Cole interview. So those are that's kind of the big picture, how things went down. We got to 60,000 subscribers.
We're at 61.7. Like we were inching up to 60,000 just before the new year, and then we blew by it.
The reason why we blew by it was because of the Andy Milburn controversy.
There may have been a Russian troll farm involved. I don't know.
It wasn't our doing, though.
We'll get to that. But yeah, no, my goal was to hit 60,000 or 60,000 subscribers on YouTube. I wasn't sure if we'd get there, but with Andy's help, we did. So we'll get to that a bit. So
you mean with Putin's help?
With Putin's help, yeah, with the GRU Cyber War Brigade. So this year started off with episode 127. Or I should say this last year, 2022, started with episode 127, which is Steve Stratton. Steve's a former Special Forces dude, worked for the White House Communication Agency. He's an author, novelist. That was a cool interview to do.
Steve was great. He was also instrumental in helping me get my first job, just in a mentor capacity.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice guy. And then episode 128 was Eric Ulrich, who is a SEAL Team 6 squadron commander. He had some really cool stories, actually, the ones that he was permitted to tell. Mm-hmm. And some of the others he beat around the bush a little bit. But that was an interesting interview. Good perspective.
Yeah.
Not so often you get an interview with a squadron commander. 129, Mark Giaconia, 10th Group guy, who's there with for the invasion of Iraq. He was up north with the Kurds and the CIA guys in 2003. And his book is One Green Beret, very good memoir that I finally sat down and read cover to cover before the interview. And again, that was a very unique interview. Mark has a unique perspective, going from someone, I don't want to say he's like a anti-war or anything, but he started off like a very gung-ho, let's go kick some ass, to like having a lot of like profound reservations, having seen, the ugly reality of it up close.
Yeah.
Episode 130 was the return of Andrew Milburn. I think this was in our old, this was in our old studio. So we'll have to talk a little bit about this too. Like one of the big changes in 2022 was we moved from our old studio on the other side of this neighborhood to this new studio, built out this new set. We have the quote unquote old set is still over there. We'll go back to using that once in a while too to change things up. But the whole studio move, that was a big thing in of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you and Dee did an amazing job on this. I'd like to take a little bit of credit, but there's really no credit. Let's see, what can I do? There's no credit to be had.
Jack painted.
I got my arts and crafts skills on.
Yep.
Put the shelves up. Got our prints framed. So our prints are from Mark Lee, who we interviewed
Yep.
him. Mitch Garads did the Batman print. And we have one more I still got to get framed.
Yeah, for anybody looking for a really talented interior designer, I think that Jack will be launching his.
The JFK nuclear bunker aesthetic
Yeah.
is in
Yeah.
our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the bar globe. I always wanted one that really ties the whole room together.
It really does.
Yeah.
That and the rug.
I mean, listen, for our patrons too, specifically, like we
Made it happen for us.
we made it happen. It made
Yeah.
it happen for us, and we did it on a pretty shoestring budget, I'd say. Like that whole living room set.
Came off Facebook Market. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking like everything with paint, besides Jack getting fleeced by the framers. It
Yeah,
was
you don't
like a
want to know how
grand.
much it costs to have a print framed in this city.
Yeah, it's brutal. But we got it all together probably for like a grand. Everything
Yeah.
you see.
Anybody who wants to do business with the Team House, I recommend you go through Jack and not Dee or I. Not
And-
myself, not Dee, but Jack.
The this isn't strictly a humidor. This guy right here is actually a cigar refrigerator, technically, and that was a recommendation from a guest we'll talk about in a minute. Tio recommended that, and he recommended the air filter to me as well. And then the cigar recommendations came from Rick Prado. So
And who's going to give you better cigar recommendations than a Cuban from the CIA?
no one.
Nobody.
So, Andy, well, we interviewed him on our old set. I think that interview went on way too long, and we got way too drunk, as expected.
Nah.
The next one, episode 131, we had Sean Naylor back on for a second episode. I think, as I recall, we talked in that one a lot about he was an in-bed reporter for the invasion of Iraq, and he was also I'm going to misspeak. Sorry, Sean, but he was also embedded in Afghanistan as well. And I should also take a moment to just plug what Sean and I got going on. Is that we're on Substack now at the High Side, and it's going to be a national security focused news outlet. Focused on the sorts of things mostly that he and I write about, the intelligence community, special operations, and so on. The website is up now. It's up and running. We have not published our first story yet. I promise you, Sean and I are working on it every day. I don't want to say too much. I just say we have a whole list of stories that we want to work on, and we're currently trying to develop 3 of them at the same time. So that is definitely in the works. Episode 132 was Malcolm Braley, who was a Australian diplomat, did a lot of interesting things, kind of became an international problem solver. Then this was not a numbered episode. It was just a bonus episode. We had Mark Palomaropoulos in the studio, in our old studio.
Passing through New York. And he came in, it was during the day. It was like midday.
And yeah, so we talked about all kinds of things. I think we got back on the Havana syndrome issue. And
somebody just wrote in the chat, which is funny, like, hey, do you guys hear any stories about the after the show that you can't broadcast? It's like, yeah, those are when the best stories are told.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
The after show. Sometimes things get a little spicy.
There have been times when we've stayed in the studio up to 2 hours after the show, getting really shitty and spilling tea.
There may or may not have been an episode where I had to escort a guest home to make sure he made it back in one piece, and I will just leave it at that. Episode 133 was John, a member of the Chilean Special Operations community. I love interviewing foreign soft guys, like hearing a totally different perspective. There's like big things that are in common that all special ops guys have in common, but a lot of the national security concerns that different countries have shapes those units differently,
Right.
and shapes their cultural
Yep.
and their wartime experiences differently. And it's just always interesting to talk to them. Okay, episode 134. This was one of those interviews that I've been trying to get for a long time. I had read this dude's book, Recce, a long time ago, and really, really wanted to get him on the show. Koos Stadler, who served in the South African Special Forces, the Recce's. I remember I was in Washington, D.C. on a work trip down there when we did that interview. I loved that interview. It's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I mean that video, it has 106,000 views, which for somebody who is not caught up in the global war on terror, it's not a modern day.
It's not a Navy SEAL, that has that sort of like Hollywood recognition.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal view count.
So then Vladimir Putin went ahead and crashed the party and kind of ruined everyone's plans. We had on, for episode 135, Aaron Schwartzbaum to kind of cover the war in Ukraine and what was going on. And he is a geopolitical analyst and expert that really knows Russia and that part of the world inside out. And like he was just phenomenal in kind of laying out sort of the big picture, what was going on. And I think he would be worth having on again in 2023. I mean, the war in Ukraine is going to be a year old pretty soon. Might be worth having him on again to talk about like where we stand today and how things have progressed. Okay, episode 136, some spicy content. This was the Matthew Cole episode, who wrote Code Over Country, about SEAL Team 6.
And it got demonetized, that fucking episode.
Did it really?
Yeah, that episode's got a yellow on it. That's why I clipped it so much. And it's also like great content, but yeah, it got demonetized. Thanks, SEAL Team 6.
Yeah, I mean, a ton of people tuned in and watched the episode live. I recall there was like 950 people watching it live.
I think Matt, and then a close second was Drew. We had Drew on later in the year. But I think Matt had it. It was like 950-ish. Right on there live.
And I will say, I mean, I was happy with how the interview turned out. The Matt Cole episode, I thought we covered a lot of ground on a very controversial issue. And I hope we did it in like a mature fashion, not a lot of rants and finger pointing, just kind of this is what's happened, and maybe we need an azimuth check, so to speak.
Yeah. And, and that's one of the interesting things is because we do draw these controversies on occasion, and we try not to be controversial.
It's not like we go out of our way.
We like there are a lot of channels out there that they're political channels, left, right, whatever. They're political channels, or they're
just like saying stuff
they're
to
very,
get attention.
Right. And we definitely try not to do that, and we try, not to go for the clickbait and whatnot. But there are some things that, we also got sort of, some of the people coming out, we're anti-military or we're anti-SEAL. And it's like, well, we're not anti-military at all. Like, I loved my time in the military.
I'm not anti-SEAL or anti-special warfare, naval special warfare.
It's just when these issues come up, if you love the military, then you also want your military to
perform.
To be the professional organization that it is. Right. And this isn't saying anything about SEALs, because you and I both, we've had SEALs on. We both have SEALs that are near and dear to our heart, even though we give them a hard time. You just cannot avoid these topics. If it would be like talking about Vietnam and the good job that our soldiers there, and then skipping things like My Lai.
Right.
You can't skip these things over. You can't ignore them or whitewash them just because you're a fan of the military.
Yeah, and I think like one of the just judging some of the feedback and stuff, I think one of the things like people sometimes misinterpret, I'm just speaking for myself here, is people think that I'm criticizing soldiers who have to make difficult decisions in combat.
Right.
You do the best you can, you make the best decision you can with the information you have, and then it turns out, holy shit, actually something horrible happened. And that's not at all what I'm talking about or what I have a problem with in the military. We're talking about things that are like premeditated and intentional,
Right.
And deliberate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, when you're in combat, you make tough calls all the time, and it's sort of, there are a lot of hero to zero moments where you make the right call, you're a hero. You make the wrong call, you're a zero, and nobody. And a lot of times, those calls are just gut or instinctual. There's no way to know what that right answer is.
Yeah, I mean, I know several guys who have, in combat, they accidentally killed children doing door breaches, either with an explosive breach or a ballistic breach. If you're kind of skulking around in the night to go hit a target, you're making some noise outside, who in the house is the first to hear that, to wake up and run towards the door? Unfortunately, it's like a 7-year-old kid. And I know several people who have they were doing their job, they were being professionals, and something horrible happened that they absolutely did not intend. And, I don't pass judgment on them at all. It's terrible what happened, and they struggle having to live with that.
Right.
It's really difficult. But that is, in my opinion, that's a separate issue than what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So from there, we had episode 137 was Greg Smith, who worked deep inside Blackwater for a time, and that guy spilled major tea on that episode. That was a pretty shocking episode.
Yeah, it's pretty spicy, that one too. Especially like other podcasts have like Eric Prince on to defend his Chinese contracting and stuff like that. So it's like a real interesting dichotomy there between us and some other pods.
I really enjoyed hearing Greg's story. And episode 138 was Zach Dorfman, a journalist that I've worked with in the past. I had him on to talk about some of the covert programs that are going on in Ukraine in years prior, and presumably today. Episode 139, Sam Wan, who is a CST. She was super cool.
Yeah.
Went out with JSOC guys going on raids.
Yeah.
And she had pretty real story.
Yeah, and she was also, and we've had this discussion a couple times or a few times on this show, and I feel like they're very valuable. She also went very deep on post-traumatic stress and treatments that the routes she had taken to treat hers. When people are able, are willing, because that's a very vulnerable thing to share in front of thousands and thousands of people who you don't know. And one of the things that I appreciate about the people that we have on the show with the courage to do that is that it starts to normalize it, and people start realizing they're not the only one going through this, and also potentially open up some areas of treatment for them.
It's part of their story, right? It has that whole sort of like narrative arc that is very familiar in military fiction or nonfiction of showing up the first day at boot camp and then going to war. It's sort of like that story that's told in Full Metal Jacket, right? But a lot of those movies in the past left out that part about how difficult it is to come home.
Either that or they overplayed it, where some guy is in the office and all of a sudden Charlie's in the wire, and and he's having these massive flashbacks.
Right.
But it's generally not like that, and generally the people who are in the grips of post-traumatic stress don't even realize that they are.
Oh yeah.
And it's this downward spiral. And one of the things that I think that like the post-Vietnam era, like the movie of the week, and a lot of that Vietnam stuff did is it made civilians afraid of post-traumatic stress, right? Yeah. That this person's going to go postal,
up in a bell tower.
They're just going to go up in a bell tower. Like, we don't want to have them in the workspace, and that stuff still exists today. But I think that when people get out there and you see that, look, people who suffer from post-traumatic stress are far more, vastly more likely to harm themselves than anybody else.
Jesus. Yeah.
And the real places that it shows up is in the home, not in the workplace. Like, they're performers, right? They're gonna bury themselves in work generally, but it's when they're at home, whether with their family or by themselves, where that demon really rears its head.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm glad we really talk about it. It's finding that balance too, right? About, like we were talking about earlier, it's not to be like anti-military or anti-government or something like that, but it's to kind of just tell the complete story,
Right.
and that this is a real thing. The good times and the bad times.
Right. Yeah, and there's nothing anti-military look, I'll be very anti-VA at times, so I guess that's kind of anti-government. But there's nothing anti-military about talking about the realities of post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is I feel like this is a message that reaches across boundaries, because it's not just veterans who have post-traumatic stress. Civilians get it for a number of reasons. And it's funny because I remember a friend of mine once telling me that she was embarrassed to tell me that she had post-traumatic stress. I'm like, why are you embarrassed to tell me? She goes, well, because, you were in combat. I'm like, post-traumatic stress isn't like, it's not this thing that's related.
Right.
Like,
right.
or like veterans and, those in combat don't have the sole claim on post-traumatic. It comes from a myriad of sources. So, yeah, it's one of those things that I'm glad that we can talk about openly a lot of times.
Episode 140. I really like this guy, Ryan Hendrickson.
Yeah.
He was really cool. Special Forces, lost one of his legs in Afghanistan, right?
I believe so.
He lost his leg. I think he stepped on an IED and he had like 25 surgeries to keep his leg.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. But he got super hurt, got blown up,
And he was back at it like 18 months later.
and came back. And he is right now, I believe still right now, he is doing demining in Ukraine, policing up UXO and stuff like that. So he's still out there doing humanitarian work.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stories he was talking about going into these like recently liberated neighborhoods and like giving people bags of rice. It's like,
Yeah.
it makes it real.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, man.
I mean, as real as it can be for like people like us sitting in the comfort
Yeah.
of a Brooklyn studio.
Exactly. Yeah. Episode 141, Eric Miaris. Super cool guy. Really cool interview. Eric served in a special mission unit, had a really unique job, and man, that was just a really unique, insightful interview. I thought.
And another one of those post-traumatic stress discussions.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and we got to talk about it a little bit from like the intelligence side and how there's some unique ways that it hits people.
Yep.
Episode 142, Ben Milligan. I really like the Ben Milligan interview.
Ben is an amazing dude. Love that guy.
He's a good guy, man. And his book is really good. He wrote By Water Beneath the Walls. It's in short, it's a special operations history book. The history, I would say, of the amphibious special operations capability.
Right. It wasn't just about SEALs, but it's sort of how it culminated with the SEALs.
Well, there's a lot in there about the Rangers. There's a lot in there about special forces. His book was really, really good. The Ben Milligan interview was fun, and I hope we can have him back one day. Episode 143 was super cool. Justin Sapp. He was the first Green Beret in Vietnam. Jesus Christ.
Justin, you were looking great at the holiday party, by the way, for the first Green Beret into Vietnam, man. We just...
For like an 80-year-old, you look awesome, dude.
Yeah.
1962. He was the first Green Beret in Afghanistan. He was on one of the CIA paramilitary teams. He was on J.R. Seeger's team. And I believe they were Team Bravo. And I think that was like the first like real like public interview maybe that Justin's done.
I don't know if it was the first one. I mean, we had Toby Harnden in, for his...
and he introduced us to Justin.
He introduced us to Justin. And if you haven't read Toby's book, it's...
First Casualty.
Yeah, First Casualty. It's fantastic.
And we interviewed him also year prior.
And then Justin, was that Special Forces officer on that team. And Justin is obviously in Toby's book, as part of that whole thing.
Yeah, we saw Justin at our Christmas party. We did. We can talk about that too a little later. We did our first. I'm told you're not supposed to say first annual Christmas party. You have to have a Christmas party,
right?
And then you have to have a second one, so it's a second one. And then by the time you're doing your third, you're allowed to say it's annual. Really? John Stryker Mayer sent me a tersely worded email about this, and I said, "Well, no one likes a smartass, John. All right." But all of our guests were invited to the party, and obviously we have people spread out all over the world. If you couldn't make it this year, I hope we'll see you there next year, or at our actual annual Christmas party.
I mean, he's not wrong, right? That's the same.
No, he's not wrong.
That's the same reason why you can't call World War I until you have World War II.
Right.
Right.
I'm not saying John's wrong. I'm just saying he didn't have to put that in my face like that, man.
Just sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's time for our sponsor.
Okay. So our sponsor, we're going Seven Samurai on this one. Battling Blades. They design and sell high-quality swords, axes, and knives. You can check them out at battleblades.com. That's battleblades.com.
Battling
Battling Blades.
Get your Kurosawa on.
One day we'll get an ad right, guys. I promise.
One of these days. Battling-blades.com. So they sent us this cool katana. I'm going to try not to slice my ear off or any parts of Dave's. You can check that out.
It's Damascus steel. It's pretty nice.
They have some really cool stuff there. Like I've been checking out their stuff. They have like a gladius, from like Romans. I mean, they have some badass axes.
They have Spartan swords, chess sets.
You must
It's pretty
learn
cool.
the art of the blade, Shinobi.
They have costumes. Jack, when we had 100,000 subscribers.
You're going to have me carry this around Brooklyn and challenge people to a duel?
No.
I want to
but they've got some nice cosplay options in here. And I'm not talking about like cosplay. I'm talking about like full on like Ren Fair, like nice stuff.
I want to have one of these ads for Battling Blades. I want to get like a watermelon suspended from the ceiling, and I want to have you chop it in half.
Yeah.
We can make that happen. They're not in
do
season,
that.
but we can make it happen.
Listen, if you want to make that happen, let us know in the comments right now. Give a thumbs up. Say Dave versus watermelon. It's go.
And they have some amazing hand-carved natural stone dice, Jack.
Oh, really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
See, this guy, guys, this is a little bit of how the sausage is made. You could tell that the guys haven't read the copy that I sent them in an email
No.
earlier today.
They
We've
have
just been playing with the ninja sword.
Yeah.
we've
in the
just been
office.
playing with the sword.
Yeah.
We've been doing the No, they have D hooked us up for us because they have some really nice dice sets.
Yeah, they have some great stuff. They have the chess sets too. It's a cool website. You
D,
should
they have
go.
some really nice dice sets.
What's a dice set? Like dice, like rolling dice?
Yeah, but 6-sided, 12-sided,
Oh.
8-sided, 20-sided.
You play CeeLo.
So go
In the prison yard.
Go to battlingblades.com and use the promo code TEAMHOUSE for 20% off your order. That's battlingblades.com, and the promo code is TEAMHOUSE to get 20% off your order.
That's a good ad, guys, because we went for like 2.5 minutes. That's pretty good.
All right.
So it's okay that you
No, they have
totally
some great
ignored the
dice,
copy.
dice, though, D.
Dice, like dice up, you mean?
Dice.
Isn't it
Clackety
die?
clackety clack.
Yeah.
Well, you can see our D&D books over here, so I mean, we're not hiding anything.
We know.
So episode 144, Dutch Warenga,
Yep.
who was a CIA paramilitary. You read that book, Dave?
Yes.
Actually, I was out. I had COVID. I was fucked up, guys. And Dave did that episode with the author of Dutch's biography, Kim Kipling.
Yes.
And Dave did a great job. Our internet went out in the middle of the show.
I remember.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
my
like
God.
20 minutes. And finally it came back and we kept it going. It was a great episode.
Yeah. We've been getting updates on Dutch.
Yeah.
His health hasn't been great, so
Keep him in your thoughts.
keep him in your thoughts. Also, was there was, while it's on my mind, there was somebody's GoFundMe that we wanted to promote, right?
It's over.
It's over. They raised a lot.
It was a previous guest of the show, Jason Bailey, who's a former operator, super good guy.
Yeah.
And there was a GoFundMe. It's
Yeah.
over now. They raised a lot of money to help him out. He was in a car accident.
And he's doing better.
Thank God. Yeah, I
latest
haven't
update.
I haven't reached out to him. I don't think he needs to. I don't think his real priority right now. But again, keep him in your thoughts. Jason's a great dude.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about Dutch, Kim Kipling's other book is right over there, Neptune's Asylum.
which is a lot of fun.
which I read it and I wrote a review of it for Connecting Vets.
So if you've never been in the Navy, I'm just going to say the Navy has the best time of all the services.
I'm forced to concur after
The Navy
reading that
has the
book.
best time of all the services, and sea stories are there for a reason. You know, in the Army, you know, in the Marine Corps, we have no shit. There I was, knee deep in hand grenades. You know, Navy stories tend to be more booze and bar girl related. So, and antics on ships and.
It was a good book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you can find the review I wrote on connectingvets.com if you want to go check it out, and you can pick the book up on Amazon. Episode 145 was Rick Prado. I read his book Black Ops that came out this year, or came out last year now, 2022. Really good book. I really enjoyed the Rick Prado interview. I thought it's great to talk to someone, no offense, Rick, an older gentleman who had a long career and has written and thought and sort of processed his experiences and thought about it and reflected on it, and to kind of get that sort of like perspective, the life and career of somebody like that is like really, it's special. I think.
And he has an amazing career. Like it's a very interesting. It's a great book, and you know Rick's been, just because of who he is, not because of things he's actually done, but just the myth that surrounds him. You know that there
I don't want to bring it up.
Controversies and whatnot.
I respected him for the way he addressed that stuff in the book and the way he gave in the interview a complete answer, did not dodge that stuff at all. And again, Rick, thank you for the cigar recommendations.
He's such a stand-up dude.
Appreciate it, man. And episode 146 was Peter Perry, MARSOC guy. That actually, I think he was commenting on one of our interviews, and Dee went and hit him up.
Yeah, I think he commented on Andy's interview.
Yeah. And the Peter Perry interview was really good. Again, really nice guy.
Yeah.
Really interesting experiences. I was thinking about it today and trying to remember who told us some of those crazy stories about explosive cache sites in Afghanistan going up in the middle of a firefight. That was Peter Perry, wasn't it? Didn't he get blown off his feet at one point?
I don't know. He had some gnarly stories, for sure. I don't remember that. But
it was also great, getting his perspective on the transition from, force recon to MARSOC, the whole Raider controversy.
Where the Cork came and told him, you guys are part of this thing called ManSOC. He's like, what? What's this? Episode 147, a guy, again, this is a guy I'd wanted to have on for a long time. Thank you, Dave. Doug Wise. So Doug Wise was senior CIA, deputy director at DIA. Again, dude who had a long, long career, did some really interesting stuff, and it was really cool that he was able to come and share some of it with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Episode 148 was Fred Galvin. His book is right behind you, Dave, A Few Bad Men. Fred was also a MARSOC guy. His element got ambushed in Afghanistan, and right away the recriminations began, the witch hunt began.
Yeah.
These really dire accusations of war crimes they were hit with that proved not to be substantiated at all.
But that didn't save them.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
And that's the thing.
That's kind of scary.
Like when you think about the military, like the overall, the structure of the military, when it comes to how they treat their soldiers, their Marines, their airmen, the sailors on the ground, it's you see the bureaucracy, and it's rarely good because they take the safe way out often.
Right.
They will burn individuals or whole teams, before there's any actual judicial process. They'll do it, due to public opinion, due to the Taliban's PR machine.
Yeah, I mean, it was a sad story, and that whole thing haunted them for a long time. But I'm glad that Fred wrote that book and that he was able to get his side of the story out. And I mean, not just his side, but what the Marine Corps ultimately came to concluded on their own, which was that they were it was a legitimate firefight.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, ex-Royal Canadian, Air Force hotel stories, I'm sure they're amazing, and I didn't mean to disparage or leave out the Air
Well,
Force.
speaking of agencies that have great stories, our next guest was Bill Gage, who was with the Secret Service.
Yeah.
Secret Service knows how to party,
No,
man.
Secret Service definitely knows how to party.
So Bill Gage came on for the second time. Well, that episode was a little ad hoc in the sense that we were talking about school safety. I mean, it's an important issue, but
Yeah.
it was a little off kilter for like what we normally talk about. But it was okay.
Yeah.
And Bill's an interesting guy. I'm glad we were able to have him on.
Yeah. The thing with the Secret Service and their parties, though, they just need to learn to pay their bills.
Square yourself away, man.
Exactly.
So you get bagged.
Pay the help.
Be a professional. Take care of them. They take care of you.
Right.
Episode 150 was Jim Olsen. That was like a mind-blowing episode. That was
That's probably one of my favorite episodes this year.
Honestly, yeah. Honestly, like all our episodes are great, and you should watch or listen to every single.
Agreed.
But this is a story. If you enjoy
spy stories.
spy stories,
Yeah.
like real spy stories, and you want to get depressed, like, and don't go listen to like Depeche Mode or Joy Division or whoever, I don't know who like the emo bands are now.
I was listening to Alice in Chains this afternoon, having a little flashbacks. The Rooster.
Yeah. But if you want to get depressed and a little nervous and also be entertained at the same time, definitely watch his interview because he ran counterintelligence at the agency and he had a career in it, and now he teaches it in Texas, and it's terrifying how I don't want to say how inadequate we are at counterintelligence, but how hard it is.
Yeah.
How hard it is to do properly, especially in a country where we value our freedoms and privacy and things like that.
Some of his stories of like meeting James Jesus Angleton and going down manholes in Moscow to tap cables.
So I don't think he talked about that in his interview.
Yeah,
That's in The Main Enemy.
No, it's in The Main Enemy.
Did he talk about it in our interview?
Bearden's book, but I remember specifically talking to Jim about
okay.
it.
During the show?
Yeah, during the show.
Okay.
Because he's a.
I'm not like.
Are you spilling tea right now?
No,
I'm
it's
not.
in the
Okay.
books. It's in
Talk about it
books.
himself.
Tea? Is he spilling tea?
No, he's not. He's
Okay.
not. It's literally in Milt's book. He names Jim Olsen too.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and well, we'll talk
It's
about
Milt's
Milt.
fault.
We'll talk about Milt in a bit, but like the first chapter of Milt's book has references to Jim Olsen and Marty Peterson. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
bringing it all together. Episode 151, long-awaited Dale Comstock interview. We had wanted to have Dale on for a long time, and I'm glad we were finally able to get him. And Dale is such a character, one of the most colorful people I know. And we had to limit it really to just talking about his security contract or mercenary days because the guy's done so much and been all over the place.
He's Casca, you know.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know who Casca is, he's like the eternal soldier. Like Dale, you know, like for most of us, we fight until either we're tired or the war runs out. And I think that was true in Vietnam too. Jude's fought. And then you had those guys who was like, well, Vietnam's over. What am I going to do now? I'll go to South Africa. You know, I'll go over to Africa. You know, and Dale is that same person. As long as there is war somewhere,
Dale's going to get involved somehow.
yeah, Dale will abide.
Episode 152. Again, this was a guy I'd wanted to have on for a long, long time, and really the delay was actually to coincide with his book coming out. The Dreaming Circus is the name of his book. Jim Morris, who was a Special Forces officer in Vietnam, and then he was a writer for Soldier of Fortune magazine. I love Jim. Has great stories. And so we were able to talk about his time in Vietnam to his own way of recovering from the war and everything else, and ultimately how he got into shamanism and this sort of movement. And I mean, it's a very unique perspective, and I highly recommend his book. The Dreaming Circus was really good. Episode 153, again, another guy I'd been trying to get on this show for like years. J.R. Seeger. Finally got the elusive J.R. Seeger interview, and it was definitely worth it. He was awesome. JR and his, I think his team, I think they were the second team in Afghanistan with Justin, and I think they were the second team after Gary Schroen's team. So yeah, JR was awesome, and I want to have him back because he's like a living, he's like the unofficial historian of like paramilitary activities, and just he knows all this stuff off the top of his head so well that I would love, in that interview he was telling his story, I'd love to have him in to talk about history and some of his perspectives and things like that.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating.
I think it would be worthwhile. Episode 154 was Alex Bertelli, MH47 pilot in the 160th.
Yeah. Yeah, like Alex, he's such a humble dude because he was like, so, in this program, I did well enough. In this program, they only took 3 people, and I did well. Like, he was so humble, and he really gave us a great insight into aspects of the 160th that, like we've had Coco on, we've had, people on, like, for
the gunship guys.
Yeah, for the gunship and stuff like that. And it was just such a great perspective, and he was such a great dude.
Yeah,
a really great story.
Great stories. Episode 155, we had Doug Wise back on for a second time. Again, the guy that has such a depth of experience.
Yeah.
We wanted to talk about Syria. We wanted to talk about Ukraine with him. So we had him back on a second time. We'd love to do a third round with Doug because he's fun to talk to.
Doug's got to know where the bodies are buried, huh? Like, how long was his career? Like 35 years?
He did this PBS documentary that I was also in about Michael Flynn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was Flynn's deputy, right? At DIA?
Yeah. And then, now this wasn't a numbered episode. This was a bonus episode, but we had Kate Rockline on the show. She is the ex-wife of Michael Frody, who was a soldier working in compartmentalized intelligence programs who took his own life. And I wrote a long article about Michael. Spent a lot of time talking to Kate, and it was great to have her here in the studio and actually hear her tell the story.
Mm-hmm. Both his and, she also sort of told it from the post-traumatic side. And,
because she's a nurse.
And the moral injury.
She's a PhD.
That was actually the first time I've ever heard of moral injury, was when she was on the show. She did mention moral injury, right?
I believe. Yeah. I'm sure she did.
Yeah.
So she wrote one of her postdoc research, I think it may have been, was on TBI, it was on traumatic brain injury.
Yep.
So then she, having experienced all this stuff, I mean, it's incredibly unique. I mean, there's probably no one else in the world that has quite that insight to that level that she does. So I'm really glad that we were able to have her here and have her tell her story. Episode 156 was the Drew Mullins episode. Drew served as a SEAL, and then he was in an Army SMU. He was over in Iraq with some other previous guests of the show, Mick Mulroy and some of those guys. And the Drew episode was awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
That was like 3 hours long, and
Awesome.
we could have gone another 3 hours.
And that one had a ton of live too, like 850, 900, just under Matt Cole's.
Yeah.
Yeah, Drew is super cool. I thought he has represented himself and his units very well, and he's out there doing stuff now. Actually, he is working with Mulroy and Eric Ulrich, doing stuff with
The
them.
Lobo Institute.
Yeah,
The Lobo Institute, yeah.
and I believe he's also getting his own podcast going. So
that's great.
When he gets, it's like Combat Daddies or something like this.
Yeah.
It's he wants to talk to like fathers who are veterans or something.
Yeah.
Well, I'll bring it up again when he gets it up and running. We'll plug it.
I just have to say that I really enjoyed just bullshitting with him. That's so. This is one of those episodes where Jack really shines in the sense that Drew and I would have spent 2 hours just bullshitting and talking about
The Navy
boot camp
Yeah,
and sea
yeah.
stories and bullshit stuff.
No, when I finally wrestle these guys onto the show, and they were in these like unique like these secret wars and battles and secret ops and stuff. It's like there is no way you're getting out of here without me asking you about that. There's no way you're coming here to talk about boot camp for 3 hours. We'll talk about that a little bit later too, because I've actually, through the comments I've seen, like it actually upsets people, viewers sometimes, that I interrupt the guests.
Well, it's okay because it bothers them that like I bullshit with them. So
yeah,
like,
exactly. You can't win them all.
Yeah.
You know. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But episode 157 was another guy I had wanted to get on for a long, long time, and I didn't know how to contact him. And I finally met an interlocutor who could help with that.
that's a big word.
I went to college, okay, guys?
Oh, get over yourself.
I'm a scholar. I have scholarly pursuits.
But you still say cachet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can yell at who was it that was lecturing me about that? It was it was he was on the show. He was a Spy Talk guy.
Jeff Stein?
Jeff Stein lectured me about it. He was like, actually, what you need to understand. I'm like, Jeff, I know, I got it. So Chris Cox served in the RLI, wrote the book Fire Force, which was, it's a fucking amazing memoir of his time in the Rhodesian Light Infantry. And yeah, I mean, Chris is another one of these guys who had these insane experiences and, you know, is able to kind of like reflect back on it with some perspective. And I thought it was a great interview. Really enjoyed talking to him. Okay, so now episode 158 was the Milt Bearden episode. He wrote The Main Enemy. I read that book, and I'd say it's my favorite espionage book.
That book rules.
It's nonfiction. What Milt wrote in that book is sort of like a lot of the other books written by former spies. A lot of them are very good, but they're sort of episodic, like they're very specific to that person's experience. Milt's book is the first that I felt like it kind of brings it all together, and it tells like a period of time in the 70s, 80s, into the 90s, and the collapse of the Soviet Union, like what was going on in these spy games between the CIA and the KGB. And Milt, I felt like he just blows the lid off so much of it, and you're like, holy shit, like this is what was happening. Some of it is like horrifying, some of it is amazing, but I mean, I promise you won't be disappointed if you read the book.
I loved it.
So yeah, that was the interview. You and I were in Vegas for DEF CON when we did that interview.
Yeah.
And Milt was terrific. But I mean, so much information, there is no way we could cover it all. I just did the best I could with like an hour and a half. Episode 159 was William Walter, wrote a 2-volume set, The History of the AC-130 Gunship. That was a good one.
It was phenomenal. Yeah, it was phenomenal. First off, anybody who's ever had their ass pulled out of the fire by Spectre, to read those books and then to get the idea that they were almost scrapped post-Vietnam. The only reason they weren't scrapped, I think, was because of conflict. I don't know if it was 9/11 or it was something prior to that. I don't recall. But the whole program was almost scrapped, which is absolutely raggy. But it's absolutely ridiculous.
The whiskey's getting to us.
I know. I didn't get my Scooby snacks.
We get deep into our cups
Yeah.
on this show sometimes.
But yeah, no, it's a phenomenal episode.
So episode 160, actually a guy we met at DEF CON jumped on the show, Ryan English, who's a Marine Corps scout sniper, and then he was an Army worst guy.
Yep.
And now he does cybersecurity stuff.
Yeah.
And he was super cool to interview. He's fun.
a great dude.
Yeah.
It was a great interview. It's one of those cases where, he was, a Marine sniper, and then he got out, and then he was doing contracting work, and then one of his buddies from the Marines joined the Army National Guard in a LURS unit and says, hey, I'm going, I can't remember if it's Afghanistan or Iraq, but he goes, I think it was Iraq.
I think it was Iraq.
Yeah, but, I'm going over join the guard and come with me. And, you know, Ryan's like, Roger. Roger will go.
That's the second time I've heard that kind of story. There was another guy I met once who he's a cop. He's an LAPD cop, and he was in the Marines. And then when the invasion of Iraq was kicking off, one of his buddies convinced him, like, let's go join this like National Guard unit. They're air assault. Like, we'll get to do something. And so like he jumped on for the invasion and saw all kinds of crazy stuff. Maybe I might be able to hit him up again and see if I could get him on the show. He's an interesting guy. So episode 161 was Amy Forsyth. She was a PAO for either SOCOM or JSOC, maybe both, actually. And she was covered the CST program as well. Yeah, she was interesting to talk to as well. Has a new book out, and Amy, I'm sorry, I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head.
D.
I can't remember it either. Sorry, guys.
We'll pull it up. Gail Helt, episode 162. I've known Gail for a little while now. Interviewed her once for Stars and Stripes, but it was great to have her on this podcast and really like go into like her story and talk about her depth of knowledge. She was a China analyst at CIA. So I hope you guys will check that episode out. She was really cool to talk to. She has a ton of knowledge. Episode 163 was Casey Campbell, A-10 pilot who got shot out of the sky, almost got shot out of the sky.
Killer chick.
Almost got shot. She successfully landed her bird after getting hit with a missile in Iraq. She was hardcore, man. That was a good one.
It's an amazing episode. I recommend you watch it. Like, it's her. Honest to God, like, had I been in her situation, I would have jumped. I would have just dropped that plane. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Killer chick. No, she's hardcore. It's a great story. She won. It was an air medal, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah, I believe it was an air medal. But yeah, it was great story. And again, this is sort of like the AC-130. Anybody who's ever had their ass pulled out of the fire by an A-10, like, definitely watch this. It was fantastic.
Episode 164. This was one of my favorite episodes of the year, actually, because, again, it's such a unique view. It's a sort of insight that we very, very rarely get. This was Louis Seyon, who was a French special ops guy. He was in the Marine Commando. So it's like he was a French Navy SEAL. And had a lot of stuff about doing ops in the Sahel and doing in Africa. Some of that stuff was just incredible, like firefights. You never hear about that stuff anywhere else. He was one of the guys that the French helped with the effort after the Niger ambush, helping to recover those guys. So Louis just had an unreal experience, and not just to hear that from the French perspective is like super rare. You just don't get that.
Oh no, I mean, and the combat that they were doing with the limited number of forces that they had.
It was like Ranger School, like bounding Overwatch firefights.
Yeah, but yeah. And they have dudes peeling off, and all of a sudden, like, it's like 4 dudes on a team, 3 dudes on a team, 2 dudes on a team. You know, like, yeah, it was crazy. And Amy Forsyth's book is Heroes Live Here.
That's right.
Yeah,
thank you. Then episode 165 was Nick Moore, who was a Ranger, actually served alongside Tony Brooks. And Nick had a long career in the Ranger Regiment, going, from private to platoon sergeant, was involved in the Marcus Luttrell search. He was involved in the Extortion 17 crash, the recovery for that, and all of these other firefights in between. He got shot in the, pretty badly wounded at one point. That was one of those interviews that stands out in my mind. Just the candor and some of the horror of war. And, one of the things that I'm most proud of being able to have on this show is to have people like Nick Moore on the show in like a very adult way that they talk about combat and war and killing and death and these really horrible things. And and they talk about it in a matter of fact, but a very professional and mature way that I really admire from those guys. And Nick was one of those that, some of that stuff, some of the interviews we've done, like Nick's, Javier Mackey, just really stand out. Like, those are some guys who went through some really tough shit and came out on the other side, which isn't easy.
No, it's not.
Episode 166 was with former Marine and reporter James Laporta. That was a great episode, and I didn't realize even that James was involved in that whole Helmand province offensive. And that whole story about them like air assaulting in and basically getting into firefights for 3 months straight. Like,
yeah.
Holy shit, dude. And James, he's been a reporter for a while. He's covered some really great stories, done some great reporting. But so I got an axe to grind here with Laporta, well, not with Laporta. But Laporta got done dirty.
No.
He got done dirty.
I fucked over.
And I'm gonna unpack it. I'm gonna spill some tea here.
Let's do it.
It's already been spilled, but it hasn't been covered here on the show. So
you're gonna spread it around a little.
I'm gonna spread it around.
Somebody else spilled the tea, but you're gonna spread it.
I'm gonna make sure it gets out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure it gets out there. James wrote for the Associated Press, and there was a news story the Associated Press put out. You might remember that there was a missile that landed in Poland, and it was a big deal because what the AP published was that this was a Russian missile.
Right, and they published that as fact.
They published it as a fact that this missile did not come down, not in Ukraine, but came down inside a NATO nation, inside Poland. Now, when the Polish government was asked what happened, the Polish government said, "We're investigating. We have to figure this out." President Biden was asked in a press conference. They said, "Can you elaborate on this?" And he gave it like Biden answer like, "No."
Ice cream.
Just like, "No."
This angry
And that's
fucking
it.
dotty old guy.
But okay, he did the responsible thing and said, "No, I can't elaborate on that," because people were still trying to figure out what happened. So that AP story that was written under a different byline, but they blamed it all on Laporta and fired him for it. And what came out in subsequent days, not from me, but on some other website, was the receipts. The chat logs from Slack came out. And what happened was there were a bunch of editors in this Slack, and they were like, "Oh, what's going on? What's going on?" And James pops in and says, "I have a source who tells me that it was a Russian missile that came down in Poland." And they came back to him and they were like, "James, can you work on this some more? Can you figure out more information about this?" And he was like, "I'm at a doctor's appointment right now. I'm sorry, I can't." The editors then made an editorial decision to take that information, single-sourced information, and publish it. Rightly or wrongly, that was their decision to make.
Wrongly.
They should have double sourced or triple sourced before they ran with something like that.
Yeah, and allowed James he was giving them a heads up, but he hadn't had a chance to do any due diligence.
Right. He was just saying, "This is what I know," in a private chat log with editors.
And meanwhile, he's going,
yeah. And but then of course, as shit rolls downhill, and you blame the enlisted Marine for all the problems that you have. And yes, and James got canned for that, and I thought that was bullshit. And
it is bullshit.
They didn't take any ownership of their mistake.
Of course not.
And say yeah, we fucked up. Instead, they blamed it on him. So yeah, they did James dirty, and James, I hope that you found another job already, and if not, consider hiring Laporta. He's a good dude, can do some good work. I think he's just getting started. He's got a good career ahead of him, even though there's a little minor setback.
Yep.
So episode 167 was the Tim Weiner episode. Tim Weiner wrote Legacy of Ashes right above Dave there.
Also amazing book.
An amazing book. It was, I read that in like a week. It was amazing. We had Tim on, and man, that interview was wild. That was a good time. And a little teaser, we're going to have Tim back on the show in 2023. We have him scheduled to come back. we're going to talk more about contemporary stuff rather than historical stuff.
It was a phenomenal book. It was phenomenal insight into the CIA, and he is a phenomenal storyteller.
Yeah. I mean, some great insights. And I'm glad that we're able to have like these former agency guys with an insider perspective. And then people like Tim or journalists who have a sort of outsider perspective that kind of, do this investigative work. I hope that it leads to like a bigger conversation. Like I think these are all healthy conversations, and I hope it adds up to, contributing to people's knowledge. Episode 168 was Joan Barker. Mm-hmm. She was super cool. She was in the Peace Corps, and then she was a contractor working over in Afghanistan, doing the aviation FID, the AvFID stuff, helping to train Afghan pilots. She's not a pilot herself, but she was helping train them and translating things like this. Yeah, she was really cool, and she talked a lot about the Afghan resettlement, helping to get our allies out of there and resettle them in the United States. Mm-hmm. So we hadn't talked about that since it happened the year prior. So I was glad that we were able to revisit that topic because it's still going on. I believe the last I heard, they're still trying to pass the Afghan Readjustment Act? They're still, it didn't get passed last time. So this is an ongoing issue.
And honestly, whatever you think about the Peace Corps, you need to watch this because her Peace Corps stories are phenomenal. Like her Peace Corps stories are like, they're like combat stories.
I know, it's ridiculous stuff happens out there. Episode 169 was John Fox and Till Pash. So these guys were both volunteers with the Kurdish YPG militia in Syria. And we had John here and Till dialing in remotely. And that was a baller episode.
It was a baller episode.
That was a one where the conversation after the episode went on another like 2 hours talking about all kinds of insane shit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. But those two guys were great, and they wrote, I think the book is called The Kurdish War, or it's right there, America's War in Syria. It's right there on the bookshelf, is the name of their book. So I hope you guys will go and check it out. They have really hardcore stories, working as a medic, treating, Syrian civilians. But also working as guerrilla fighters, going and trying to capture Daesh strongholds.
It's such an interesting view into Americans, but who are not just Americans, but it's into people who are fighting on the side of a guerrilla force. So they don't have, even though there are people around them who have all the Gucci gear, they have all the air support, they have all the night vision, all these other people do, but they don't.
They got a rusty Kalashnikov.
Yeah.
You're out there flapping, and some of those volunteers literally were out there flapping. I mean, it was nuts. I'd love to have more of them on in the future, and I would like to. I would be very interested in getting actual Kurds on the show who served in the YPG or YPJ. It's always. I mean, it's good to have like Americans on the show, but it would be you'd get a different perspective. You'd get a more of a Kurdish perspective if we had English speaking, maybe somebody from the diaspora. So if you have anyone in mind, contact me. I'm always happy to talk to you guys. Episode 170 was Tio. Yeah. So that was he was an undercover dude, worked with the DEA. And he was like the first episode we did where like he was sitting here where I'm sitting. His face is all blacked out in the interview. You can't see who he is.
And it's funny because we actually have a policy against that in the way that, Jack and I go to great lengths to vet everybody we have on the show to ensure that they're legit. We reach through our networks and make sure that somebody who comes on is who they say they are, did what they say they do. And then we don't like to work sort of in this anonymity kind of phase because it's tough, right? Like we could just have anybody on to make up stories. But in this case, we knew this guy was legit. We checked his bona fides. We had the right people vouching for him. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, because he had been undercover with
like
for the DEI,
MS-13, Mexican cartels.
because he had been undercover,
yeah.
we were like, okay, we'll give you this. And the stories are great. And here's the thing. Imagine whoever you are right now watching this. Imagine if you don't have any undercover training, all you've seen are procedurals and, The Wire and whatever else. And one of your first jobs is going undercover
Yeah.
with like no real undercover training.
Back in the day when they were like, "Oh, you're a brown guy. You're
Yeah.
you're a Mexican.
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
go undercover,
yeah.
right?
yeah. I'm Colombian. Yeah, Mexican, Colombian, whatever. It's all the same.
You hablo
yeah,
español.
You hablo, right? And they just give them a stack of money and throw them in a strip club with all these
Italians.
With all these Italians. They're like, make a connection. So he makes it rain, makes his connection. They're like, what are you doing spending the money? That was show me money.
Yeah. He was making it rain, buying champagne and everything. Yeah. He has amazing stories, and I swear to God, we only got through like a quarter of his stories. I'm trying to get him to come back on in 2023 because I had like 5 pages of notes, and we got through like 1 page. 171, Greg Schaefer, FBI HRT agent.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Like we had Danny Coulson on previously, who was the founder of HRT,
and the basis of Agent Coulson from the Marvel comic universe.
But this was the first time we had like a kind of boots on the ground FBI HRT dude.
Since
more current, who's
current,
overseas with the JSOC
Yeah.
task force and everything as well. That was a good interview.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
That was a lot of interesting stuff. Again, another interesting perspective you don't normally hear.
Yeah.
And shout out to Eric Miyares, who's watching live.
Thank you, Eric. We hope to see you in studio one day too. Next time you're coming through the city.
Yeah, we love you, Eric, man.
Episode 171, or I'm sorry, we just talked about that. Episode 172 was Holden Triplett, another FBI dude who worked counterintelligence, did liaison duties in China and Russia. Again, talk about unique perspectives.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the fun things about like this job, about this, what we do, is we get to talk to these people again. Like the combat stories are great, but you and I have been there. Like we know what those stories are. For us, though, I think a lot of times the treat is like seeing this whole different perspective.
Yeah, you're like, holy shit, really?
Yeah,
That happened?
Like you guys are badass. Yeah, and Holden is definitely like
The one crazy part about Holden's episode was when he worked at the NSC and he gets read in on like stuff that like only 30 people know.
Yeah,
and like he knows what's like really going on and how he fucking gets to sleep at night when he knows like the shit show that's happening.
right.
Yeah, I mean the counterintelligence stuff is one of the more, I'll say this as a reporter, like it's one of the more difficult things to penetrate because those cases are kept so close hold. Very few people know about them, and they never get declassified. Like they're just like left open.
Yeah,
Like closing a counterintelligence case, like it seems like or a counterintelligence program, like is that even a thing? Does it even happen?
Yeah.
It seems like they're just left classified forever.
yeah,
Sometimes if there's an arrest made, then you'll start to hear some of it.
right.
But even then, even when arrests happen, like sometimes they're just arresting people to take them off the chessboard.
Right.
Like they're getting prosecuted for like 5% of what they did.
Right.
And you're hearing there's this little piece of it.
Right.
So yeah, we've had a number of counterintelligence people on, and some of them were more like wartime in Iraq doing human rather than counterintelligence. Holden was doing CI at like a pretty high level.
Yeah.
I guess at the highest level if he was up at the NSC.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a super cool interview. Episode 173, Chad McCoy, 24th STS, pararescue guy. He was sergeant major of the unit. It doesn't get any better than that, really. I mean,
No.
He did some amazing stuff, amazing stories. Again, a guy who'd been in the shit, really experienced some hardcore stuff, and was able to talk about it and articulate it in a very adult manner.
And also one of those guys, like a few people we've had, who got fucked in the end.
Oh yeah, he kind of did.
Right? Like who were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And got screwed by the system because that's how Big Daddy got
Politics.
military. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That was a fun night too. Like that night went on.
Super fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
the
went-
after stories were better.
we were
Were a little bit better than the actual show.
we went out to the bar afterwards and had some drinks and some food. No, Chad was awesome, man. I'd love to have him on again sometime. Episode 174, Andrew Milburn came back again. I think he stepped right off a plane.
Yeah, he came from London.
Yeah.
From London.
Yeah, he had some serious sleep deprivation going on.
Comes in. We start drinking. We had I mean, the episode was good. I thought we had a
We
good.
couldn't get him unclothed though.
No.
Yeah, the last time
We didn't take it to that level,
was
unfortunately.
There's nipple the last.
Yeah, I was hoping
Yeah.
for some nip.
So we did the interview. I
We
thought,
are rated A for adult.
but yeah, well, you can show male nipple. I think that's okay.
What a sexist society, right?
So Andrews, I thought that was a good interview. However, months later, that interview got clipped and picked up by, I don't even want to say like the left or leftists. Like these are like off the rail, like pro Putin, like pro Russia leftists. The gray zone, all these kinds of people who are, they're like,
I didn't know the gray zone was leftist. I have never.
They're like anti-American imperialist kind
Yeah.
of
Are
people.
they?
Yeah, like it's our fault that
NATO.
Ukraine
Oh, I
was
didn't know that.
invaded.
Yeah.
Dude, it's just like off the rails
It's
weirdos,
nonsense.
really. I wouldn't even call them leftists. I just say, yeah, they're weirdos on the fringe that like no one really takes seriously. But they clipped part of that interview where Andy was making like some candid comments about like Ukraine and like, yeah, they're fucked up too in some ways, right? Which is a nuanced adult view. He's not bullshitting. I mean, Ukraine. I think the World Bank rated Ukraine as one of the most corrupt countries in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that goes into it. It's not to say simply like they're bad people. Corruption becomes endemic in a country. There's a book called, I think it's called Moneyland, that I read about this. It had a chapter in it. It was talking about how like when corruption becomes so systemic in the system that when you get down to the level of like the police officers and the doctors and things like that, and they ask you for a bribe, they're not doing that because they're bad.
That's how they make their money.
It's because their paychecks are being stolen by the people above them.
Yeah, that's
so it's
like when you get pulled over for the bakshish, like in Morocco or wherever you might be, that's because that's their money. They're not buying a yacht or a diamond ring for their wife. That's how they're feeding their kids.
Right. So
My beef with it was like it's a 2-hour interview. He took 2.5 minutes
course,
he
because,
he edited
Who's
himself.
he? Oh, you
Who's
Max
Blumenthal.
Max Blumenthal.
And then, basically they got picked up by like Russian media saying like how this private military contractor saying how Ukrainians fucking, eat the skulls of their enemies. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, what Andy was saying is that like, yeah, Ukraine's a flawed country. but
Yeah.
and they're at war. What do you want? Like, what's going to happen?
It's
Yeah.
a war, and we're supporting them. They're
Do you know what Ukraine didn't do though? Is they
Invade
didn't
Russia?
Invade Russia.
Bingo, yeah. That's
like-
a little thing that people like to not
look,
say.
didn't you know Russia had to invade? NATO made them invade.
for
colonialism, man.
For all the faults that Ukraine has, or any other country has. Look, when we were in Latin America, supporting a lot of those causes, a lot of those groups and governments weren't great either. But a lot of the world is the lesser of two. I don't want to say the lesser of two evils.
No, it is.
But when one country when one country invades another country, that's outright aggression. There's no other way to paint that. If you want to talk about the issues in Ukraine, that's fine. We can talk about the issues in Ukraine. And honestly, I feel as though we should use the money we're giving Ukraine to sort of leverage those issues.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? We're not really doing that, but we could use that. But at the end of the day, Ukraine didn't invade Russia.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, in all of our partner forces that we choose to work with around the world, none of them are perfect. None of them are choir boys. Name the partner that is not in any sense problematic. I mean, even the Kurds, who are a very good partner force for us in Syria, there's problems there.
Sure.
There's problems they have had their issues. There are issues that are not just about them, but it puts us in politically difficult situations.
Right.
They all have difficulties and different kinds of problems. But if the bar is we cannot partner with anyone unless they're like angels, then we're not partnering with anyone at all. I mean, if you're going to say
We can't even partner with ourselves. I mean,
no,
honestly.
yeah, exactly.
You know what
I
I
mean, look, there has come out in the press, and I know through some of my sources, there is a neo-Nazi element within the German military.
Right.
Can we not partner with the Germans?
Right.
I mean, we have this in our military. Unfortunately, there are these people out there. I mean, it's like when you're choosing to focus on a neo-Nazi element in Ukraine. I mean, the Russians have Nazis too, I'm afraid to say. I mean, I know some people don't want to hear that, but there are neo-Nazis in Russia as well. I mean, it gets into this point where you're not seeing the forest through the trees by focusing on this one thing. But at the same time, I mean, look, I'm a reporter. I'm critical.
Right.
And I point to things and say, hey, that's fucked up. I point to things in the U.S. military all the time and say, hey, that's fucked up.
Right.
That's wrong.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that I'm like going over and I want to make friends with Vladimir Putin
Right.
and hang out with authoritarians
Right.
because I hate my country
Right.
so much.
I mean, at the end of the
That's just
day,
weird.
for anybody who admires what Putin or what they think Putin is trying to do, you have to remember that Putin also like he's been in office how long? Like he totally reorganized the government to keep him in office indefinitely. That's not.
Yeah, is Russia your view of democracy? Really?
Right.
Like, is this
Right.
what? But I mean, again, with these types of people, it's not that they're anti-war; it's that they're anti-American.
Right.
And that's what it's really about. And it's like, just come out,
Like
just,
the Max Blumenthal types.
yeah, just-
Like
yeah,
I haven't really.
just come out and say what you are.
You know that I'm like blissfully ignorant about this kind of stuff. So fortunately,
Episode 175. Okay, this was a dude I've been trying to get for like 2 years, and I'm so glad he finally agreed after my pestering. Daryl Blocker. Daryl's a super good guy. He was really cool to have on the show. Daryl was another senior agency guy. Ran not Africa Station, it was Africa section for the agency.
And deputy director of CTC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it was a division at that time, right?
A division,
Yeah,
thank you.
Africa division.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daryl was really cool. Episode 176 was Matt DeVoe, cybersecurity guy, did cybersecurity stuff for DoD, for the Pentagon. That was, again, another interesting insight.
Matt, and I think that what was lost on some people, or what they may not understand, is Matt is like one of the OG red teamers. Like before Red Team,
Yeah.
And we're not talking about Marchenko's Red Cell, right? We're talking about red teaming and from a cybersecurity perspective. Like he has been around. He has almost defined some of the the industry. And I don't mean in like the industry, but also the way our country handles like cyber warfare. He was a fascinating dude and great interview.
Again, another unique one. Episode 177 was James Hawes, who was he was a SEAL officer and then a maritime branch guy in the Congo in the 1960s, going after Che Guevara.
Yeah.
That was a super cool interview.
Yeah.
I hope you guys will go back, and I don't think too many people watched it because it came out around Thanksgiving, but if you missed that one, go back and check it out.
Yeah,
And
it was pre-recorded.
Yeah, it's pre-recorded and it's short. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's really interesting. It's like a piece of history that a lot of people I didn't know. You know,
His book is over here somewhere. It's called Cold War Navy SEAL. If you guys want to go pick up his book, it's right there above Dave. It's good. Episode 178 had Milt Bearden back. I think maybe you had COVID this time.
I did. I don't remember if it was COVID or the flu. It was some crud. It was whatever.
So I interviewed Milt. We talked about how the agency helped the Israelis evacuate Ethiopian Jews out of Sudan, and then how Milt smuggled some compromised Mossad agents out of Sudan. Their covers got blown, and he smuggled them out in boxes with oxygen tanks. So that was a super cool interview.
Also, the Milt stuff with like how he's like helped consult on like Robert De Niro's movies and stuff. which
That
is
was
pretty
cool.
dope. Yeah.
We need. I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said I could talk to Milt all night. We'll have to have him on back again. Episode 179. I love this one. Clayton Jensen, who's a Side A guy, working in Colombia, working in Afghanistan.
Really, a part of some of the unsung heroes of the special operations community.
Doing the electronic warfare stuff that a
Yeah.
lot of people don't understand. And like I was saying at the show, like a lot of people get that there's a shooting war going on. They don't understand that there's this whole electronic warfare piece going back and forth between these different terrorist organizations and DoD. We're trying to find them. They're trying to stay hidden. We're trying to crack their comms. They're trying to stop us. So there's a whole interesting story in that.
And not only that, but the stuff they did the stuff they did down south was amazing
That's
too.
super cool.
And integral to so many
Yeah.
of the operations, the successful operations we had.
When he was talking about getting shot out of the sky with SA-7s.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I was like, yo, he's a SIGINT guy, but he's done some shooting too.
I never
like
even heard that story
crazy,
before. I was like,
crazy.
what?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, and D, we saw the video.
Yeah, he sent us the video.
Dude.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Sorry, guys, you're not gonna see that.
Sorry, you
video.
guys can't see it.
Episode 180, again, this is one of those ones that like resonates and sticks with you, was Les Sandusky, who was a Ranger Regiment platoon sergeant in the border section, and his Afghanistan stories and his Syria stories. And that's some hardcore stuff.
First off, let's just say that Les was a monster before he even went to Ranger Regiment.
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I
love that
mean?
story.
Like he was a beast, and Les is one of those guys. When you talk about the guy on your left or right, like Les is one of those guys you want on your left or your right. Or the number one man in the door, because he ain't going down. Yeah, it was, and he's just so fun to talk to.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he came to our Christmas party like just the day. I was at the day prior, or 2 days prior, and we were hanging out. He was telling me all these like Ranger stories,
Just Joe stories.
just Joe stories,
Yeah.
guys getting into trouble in the barracks. I don't think I had laughed that hard all year until listening to him tell this stuff. It's like, oh my God.
He also got fucked over too.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did. Definitely did. No, Les was really cool, man. I hope to talk to him again. Episode 181 was Jeff Stein. He was a Army Intel case officer in Vietnam, and he is the editor of Spy Talk. And I can't remember if we really got into it too much or not, but you guys should look up some of the stuff he wrote for like Newsweek.
Yeah.
Doing his job in Vietnam and then going back to Vietnam after the war and finding the Vietnamese spy master that he was playing cat and mouse with was really interesting. Episode 182, Scott Mann, Special Forces officer, had a big part in the Village Stability Operations program. He is the creator and the lead actor in Last Out, the play. He's the author of Operation Pineapple, which is up there. He was a big part of the effort to evacuate Afghans out of Kabul when everything went to hell over there. And Scott Mann's just a super interesting guy to talk to. If you saw that interview, I mean, you already know.
I mean, and we love Scott. Like before we even knew him, we went to his play
Yep.
like 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago.
If you guys have the opportunity to go see his play Last Out, really, maybe Dave, you're more, you have a background in the acting world. I don't have anything. I'm a guy who knows anything about plays at all. But I went and saw it, and I was like honestly blown away.
It was really good. I told Jack, I told Scott, I was concerned about seeing it because so many things that veterans write tend to be so on the nose, and it wasn't like that. It was just a really, really well written play, and it's been revamped. Gary Sinise is actually
I'm gonna have to go see it again.
and also his book. Operation
Pineapple.
Pineapple. But that's not the book right there.
Yeah, it's right there. Operation Pineapple Express.
Operation Pineapple Express. For anybody who wants some insight into what was going on in Afghanistan during the withdrawal for the Afghans there, I highly recommend you read that book. it's an easy read. Every chapter is written like a journal. That every day is a page to 3 pages, and what people were going through, these people, reaching out to Scott, reaching out to Operation Pineapple, it's like a thriller. It's amazing, and it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching.
Episode 183 was our Christmas episode with Shawnee Delaney. She was a DIA humenter. That was a super cool episode. Again, we never really had a DIA, other than Doug, who worked at a very high level. Never had like a DIA person on here. And Shawnee had some great experiences, some great stories.
Yeah. No, that was fantastic. And, and DIA is one of those, they're another one, sort of like, the Sades or the SIGINTers. They're sort of one of those unsung heroes of what's going on. Like, they do the same job that the CIA does. They tend to focus more on the tactical level than the strategic, even though they do have strategic missions. But they're not operating with the same budget. They're not operating with the same resources and assets and everything else like that. But they're still out there doing the job. It's an amazing organization. She was a great representative of it. And, it's a great episode.
And that brings us up to, right now, our New Year's special. And then episode 184 on Tuesday, we're going to have Pat McNamara on. I don't even know. I don't need to tell you guys who Pat Mac is.
Right.
You guys know. He's awesome. He's a really fun guy. I got to meet him once down in Southern Pines. He's a super cool guy. So we'll be talking to him on Tuesday. So we'll get into questions and some show commentary, and we can talk to you guys as much as you want. As far as like what's coming up in 2023, for the most part, I think, and you guys chime in too if you want, I think we've accomplished most of what we want to do with the studio here.
Yeah.
There's a few little things we need to do. Some of you will see it. Some things you probably won't.
Once you see Jack's Mafia Dawn fish tank,
which is over
with
there.
sharks with laser beams on their head.
That's in the works. That's coming.
It's almost there. It's almost to completion.
It's not actually.
No, we still have like
a month. A lot of work to go. But yeah, the other side. So there's 2 sets on the studio. This one, and then there's the one over there that you guys saw previously with like the bookshelves and the lights and stuff. And there's a saltwater fish tank.
So once the fish tank is sorted, we'll start doing more shows on this side, especially when we don't have guests.
Interviews. Yeah. So we can switch it up. And yeah, then there's some other things we need to do to just organize stuff around here. But for the most part, I think the studio is pretty locked in, pretty set. Looks pretty good. As far as like guests on the show, I mean,
Eric's commenting. I just have to say, we love you, Eric, man. You're fucking such a solid man. Anyway, love you, Eric.
We, we're going to fly some more guests in for in-studio interviews this coming year. I mean, thanks to you guys out there, we're able to do things like that, right? It's because of you that we're here in this new studio. It's because we're able to fly dudes into the city at times. Not all of them, unfortunately, but in the past, we weren't able to do this at all. So
yeah,
it's huge.
And just so you guys know, like this has been our plan from the very beginning.
Yeah.
In the sense that we take very little out of what we earn with the Team House and pour
everything almost
everything back into it. Whether that's trying to pay for people's flights, a new studio, we love what we do.
Yeah. And we want it to be like as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah.
Right?
And we get a lot of comments on production quality, and we know it's not always great, but it's also sort of the challenge of doing it live under different circumstances all the time. Going from somebody in studio with us to somebody on Zoom with us, that every other show out there that you're watching, that you're comparing us to, is produced. It's pre-recorded. It's run through all the production filters. The sound is balanced. Everything.
Yeah, you have a ton of time in post-production to edit, to balance the sound out.
You took the words out of my mouth, Dave. People are, and I'm not saying this is good or bad or wrong or anything. People are used to the podcasts having a certain format, especially in this sort of genre, right? They have a certain format. People are used to, I think the Joe Rogan format is the most like predominant out there, and people are used to receiving information in that way. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. The difference is that this show is live. So you see all the hiccups, the little mistakes. you see, for instance, you see like the questions, you see the interview process happening in real time, where in those other shows, like the questions and things might be edited out, so you're just seeing the guest talk. Like people get upset with me in the chat sometimes, like, why did you interrupt your guest? That was so rude that you did that. It's like, hey, hold on, man. It's an interview. There's a back and forth, and I have to ask questions and like, hey, I don't want to just pass by that. I want to spend some time talking about it.
I only get pissed when you interrupt me. You know, when I'm on a tear.
Don't fuck with Dave when he's on the tear, guys.
Here's the thing.
How dare you?
If I don't interrupt at times and ask questions, what will happen is we'll have a 6-hour podcast,
right,
and we won't get past boot camp.
Right.
And like I think that if we're talking to somebody who spent
it'll be a good 6 hours though. I mean
it'll be fun. It'll be fun for us. I don't know about the viewers. But if we have a guy who spent 20 years in a special mission unit, presumably you're hoping we're going to ask some questions about that and that they took part in these like historic operations overseas. Probably we should ask them about that and not spend, you know, the 2 hours or however much time we have with them just talking about like stories about getting drunk in the barracks. Right?
Also, there's like another aspect to the live thing. Like when you're Zooming and a connection with a guest isn't great, not that it isn't great, it might be a little laggy. It could seem and it looks like you're interrupting and like the timing's a little off.
Yeah.
Again, like if you pre-record.
Yeah, we're not getting real time feedback a lot of times.
You can really like cut those like little moments out. So yeah, we do it live. Nobody else does. That means we're the best podcast around. So like and subscribe.
And Dee's the best producer out there, right?
I'm mediocre at best, but it's fine.
Well, live production is not easy. It's a whole other skill. It's not. Again, I mean, on a lot of these other podcasts, I'm not saying anything they're doing is wrong or incorrect or anything. I mean, in a way, it's better. It produces a more polished product on the end. But when we're doing it live, you're seeing. I don't know. It doesn't get any more authentic than what we're doing here because
none of those other podcasts would ever do a live episode on the regular every week. None of them.
It's hard.
D, let's give you a shout out. Where can we find Jimbo?
It's on YouTube. You can get it there. Just Jimbo movie. Yeah, it's
Jimbo movie on YouTube. That's a movie that D wrote and directed.
It's a bank heist movie. Really good.
Yeah, shoestring budget, feature film too. Not that.
However,
short
if
shit.
you're law enforcement in New York, just so you know, none of it was filmed in New York, and the guns are totally fake.
Yes,
and they weren't in New York.
Oh, I'm glad to see that
statute of limitations are over. So
I'm glad to see that our iconic intro is growing on you guys because so many people thought it was cheesy.
People
bullshit,
talk shit about that too.
Talk mad shit about my intro, and eventually it grew on them. Now it's like a thing. Like he comes on and you get all excited. Special ops.
Yeah.
It's espionage.
I like that.
That's
it's a little.
Ian. We love Ian.
That was a question someone had actually. Was that you doing that with a deep voice? Like, no, that was Ian Scotto. Ian, I worked with Ian for many years, and Ian does the Battle Line podcast with Chris Peranto. But I asked Ian if he'd do the voiceover for the intro.
Yeah,
he's better than him.
definitely. If you guys like this stuff and you haven't checked out Ian and Tonto, check out Battle Line. They're a great show. They have great guests. They're great dudes. Also, check out Ryan at Combat Story. Another like one of our friends.
Yeah, Ryan's awesome. Doing great stuff over there.
And if we haven't mentioned I don't think either Jack or I watch like some of the other ones like Jocko or some of those guys. So we're not by leaving them out. We're not like criticizing them. We just don't like know those guys. We know Ryan and Ian and Tonto.
Yeah.
We're also the best podcast.
So, what's coming up next in 2023? We got some 160th pilots. First off, we're scheduled into April right now, so like we're pretty packed.
And, some double episodes a week.
Yeah. So we got some 160th pilots. We got a LRP, Vietnam era LRP coming on the show. We have an actor actually who's played a special ops guy.
Jack's crush. That's Jack's man crush.
A vanity episode. We have some foreign soft guys coming on, some SEALs, some Rangers, agency people, some operators, even some more eclectic personalities, eclectic backgrounds. I think you'll be surprised. I'm not going to mention any names right now.
We got a SEAL Team 6 guy coming on.
Yeah.
So we don't hate all seals.
So you want to
Dee,
get to
Dee,
questions?
why don't you come out and say hi real quick? I think a lot of our viewers have never met you.
No, I think they have. I don't have a mic though. I have this mic that's connected here.
That's all right. You don't have to say anything. Just come out and wave, so
hold
people
on.
like if they see you in the street, they can shake your hand and give you.
Don't shake my hand. Don't say hello. I'm bulking right now, guys.
This is D, our producer.
This is our producer.
You
D.
don't get to see him.
Can you?
I don't know which camera we're on because I'm not that good of a producer. Hopefully it's the wide.
We'll give a Team House mug to the first person
Yeah, they can
who
see
can
it, D.
identify
Yeah, I see it.
where D is from, what city, what state.
Yeah, 2 guesses. You got 2 chances.
First person.
So weird being on this end. You got dead air.
Yeah. It's because nobody's correctly guessing D's cultural and
I'm actually from
ethnic
Albuquerque
background.
originally.
I should have taken a left at Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We got lots of questions. Okay, so some questions that I harvested from the Discord. Someone asked who...
Dutton
Dutton got it?
got it.
From Boston. Get the fuck out of here.
Hey Dutton, send D and send us an email.
Yeah, we'll send you a mug right there.
Yeah.
We got new merch too, by the way, guys.
Yeah, we got some new merch to show off. Team House mugs and
T-shirts.
T-shirts.
It's all on spring.
Here, throw me those, D.
The link is in the description.
Oh, we're getting some specific stuff now. Now we got a Bronx.
So
Okay. Oh, I was gonna give out more merch if.
so yeah, this
No,
is
no more merch.
this is new merch. Link in the description. Check it out. So questions from viewers. I harvested some from our Discord. Someone asked who my favorite shit poster is on the Discord, and I'm gonna have to go with Pengu, who is like the meme lord.
Really?
Yeah, he's the one who takes Dave and my face and puts us over like Star Wars characters and stuff like that.
The Discord's interesting.
I don't. Yeah, obviously I don't get on Discord ever. So
You should.
I
That's where the action is.
Yeah.
That's where the action is.
Yeah.
man. How do you go about choosing guests and making sure they're legit? Also, how much work goes into publishing one of your stories? So, choosing our guests, sometimes a lot of work, sometimes very little. Sometimes, like I said, I'll have to like pester somebody for like 2 years before I can get them on the show. Sometimes it happens like I'll cold call somebody or like send someone a text or an email and like, I'm Jack Murphy. I host a podcast. Would you consider coming on and they get back to me like right away, like, hell yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes like Clayton Jensen, I emailed him. He's like, I love the Team House.
Yeah,
And I was like, okay.
It was the same thing with Toby when we reached out to him. He was like, "Oh my god!" He goes like, "I was thinking about reaching out to you guys."
Yeah.
So it's great that we have more viewers now and that more people in the special operations and intelligence community like know who we are. So we sort of have those bona fides. Also, I think that if we know somebody that we want, we might ask somebody who's been on the show to reach out to them, because one thing that a lot of people are concerned with in these communities is that we're going to run like a gotcha. We're going to try and hit them with the hard questions. We're going to try and get, the truth out of them. And we understand the need for classification. We understand the need for secrecy. We understand that people can't just come on and spill their guts. And even by asking a person a question or hinting to it, we always ask guests like prior to the show, are there any topics you want to avoid? Are there any things you don't want to talk about? Because we're very respectful of that. We want to be a safe place for people in our community to come on, and not that we won't ask hard questions about things that are publicly known, but we aren't.
It's not a trial.
We
either,
aren't
yeah.
looking to out anybody, or if we have insider knowledge about things that they've done, but they don't want those things public or they don't want to be attached to it, we understand that too. So one of the things that I think helps us get people on is when we do have people that have been on and say, hey, they're not going to ask you about this classified mission that you did unless you want to talk about it. And then if you do, then they're only going to talk about it in the broadest term, in the terms that you define.
Well, yeah, you guys may have picked up in the past that there are times where I'll be like, hey, about that one thing you did that one time, why don't you share with us what you'd like to tell us?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, there are certain left and right limits that some of the guys can have to stay within. So yeah, sometimes previous guests of the show recommend people to us. Sometimes I'll ask previous guests, is there anyone you think of we should talk to? So yeah, that's kind of the answer to that. As far as like how much work goes into publishing one of your stories, I mean, I guess you're talking about like journalistic work that I do. Sometimes I spend it depends on what I'm writing. Sometimes I'm writing like news of the day, so it's usually like that day. Sometimes like investigative stuff can be weeks.
Look at the middle one.
Can be months. Can be years. The longest I've ever worked on a story, probably a couple of years. Had it like stuff sitting on the back burner, like you're kind of like waiting for a break in the story, and there are ones where I'm like, man, I'm never going to get to the bottom of this, and then you find the right people or the right person to talk to, and suddenly it's like, oh shit, okay. So yeah, I hope that answers that. Someone else wanted to ask, why is the audio quality so bad?
That's my fault.
It's not your fault. Like I said, live production is just difficult. And it doesn't help when the church upstairs gets going.
Yeah, that's a pain in the ass. Also, like, yeah, we don't have mics in front of our face. Like, the lav mics are a little bit better, a little bit more forgiving now. You know, it is what it is. I mean, I could start mixing the sound a little bit live while we're doing it. It'll be a little tricky, but yeah. I mean, it's definitely better than what it used to be.
Yeah, for sure. The lav mics were a good choice.
And we have paid a lot of money for audio specialists to come in.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't something we've just like left on the table.
No, trust me, I think about it often.
Yeah. And again, it's not like a normal podcast where you can do multiple takes if you need to. It's all just sort of happening. So another question, favorite guest of the year?
Jim Olsen I liked a lot. Eric was great. Those are the top of my head. Jim Olsen was awesome. Like, I'm into the counterintelligence stuff.
Jim was great. Milt was great. Nick Moore
was awesome. Les was awesome.
Louis was really good. Yeah, Les.
When you say favorite, like, that's so hard because they're all they're all so different, right? I mean, and they all bring so much, and they're all, we had some, really just amazing human beings on. Like, some of the stories that I really enjoyed that I thought were different, like Jim was very different.
Like Drew, Eric.
Killer Chick was very different, right? Like, but there's no way to pick a favorite because honest to God, I'm just so humbled that people with these experiences are willing to come on the show and talk about them with us and share their time with us. We do this live on Friday nights. People can definitely find something better to do on a Friday night than hang out with us. I don't even like hanging out with me on a Friday night.
On that note, most interesting thing you learned from a guest?
I liked Andy part 2, the one early before the Ukraine popped off, and he was talking. He kind of alluded to it. He didn't really get into it when he was like Marsoc Colonel. He like the French dudes that were just going out, but like the French soft guys.
Oh, the TF Hydra. Yeah,
and just like schwacking dudes.
Yeah. That was He kind of dropped a bomb there. Greg Smith talking about Eric Prince's secret armies and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
like,
wild shit.
Holy shit. A lot, I mean, some of the stuff Les had to say about Syria ops was pretty mind-blowing. Louis stuff that we were talking about in the Sahel.
And it's interesting because, like, we talk about the French. We have jokes about the French because of, like, World War II or whatever, them trying to preserve their identity and their history, their cultural history and stuff, and like, the surrender of the Germans and whatnot. But so we have these jokes about the French, but those don't match up with like the modern French in the sense of their special ops units. They get it on.
Oh, the French intelligence, like the DGSE, is like very aggressive.
Yeah, they get it on, and the French government like gives them that.
Yeah.
Like they get it on.
Kind of a follow-on to that, most surprising fact and or other guest tie-in, two sides of the same story. Like we were talking about that a little bit before we started the show. I think a lot of the northern Iraq stuff we talked about, 2003, is really interesting because we've interviewed Sam Faddis, Mick Mulroy, Drew Mullins, Mark Giaconia, and I feel like there's
Justin
one more.
No,
No.
not North. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Iraq.
And there may be one more that I'm overlooking.
Yeah, it could have been 2 years ago.
A bunch of guys who were over there with special forces in the agency in 2003, and I feel like when you put all those interviews together, it kind of brings this like big picture together.
Totally.
And I like it when that happens. Same thing, Afghanistan. Those stories begin to merge at a certain point. So that was cool. Goals for 2023. I think we kind of talked about that. Dark horse stories that come out of an interview. I think we talked about some of this stuff.
So goals for 2023. Have we talked about it?
I mean,
What kind of goals?
I mean, I'd like to hit 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'd like that too.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get, I mean, it doesn't matter. I'd like to average 50,000 views and listens per show. And 100K subscribers.
I think it'd be fun to do a live show from DEF CON from somebody from the NSA. Somebody who is previously with the NSA.
I mean, we don't have to go to Vegas to do a live show.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Well, I get them sauced up.
No, it's DEF CON. Like, they're going to be there.
Oh,
like,
right.
like I think that
They're here on the East Coast.
No. We need to go to DEF CON. We need to go to Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the goal.
Don't step on my dreams, Jack.
It's a possibility. I mean, it's...
And I would love to do a special episode, and most people out there would have no interest in watching this, but I would love to do a special role-playing episode. And not kinky role-playing. That's
on the Patreon.
Yeah, that's on the Patreon. That's behind our paywall. But whether it's D&D, we might be boycotting D&D soon, or Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah. So we'll do that. That's going to happen sometime around like the end of March, I think, is our episode 200.
Yeah.
Which is just going to be goofing off for like 12 hours. It's going to be like a long ass stream, and we're going to have like some video games. We'll have like an RPG going. We'll have some other antics, and then eventually it'll just devolve into like.
And if you think we're afraid of going 12 hours, you don't know us.
Oh no, it's
Episode 100 was 5 hours.
Yeah.
That was pretty.
Yeah.
We'll start at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon.
So you're thinking 12 hours?
And just let it roll, man. Yeah, we'll pack it full of activities and hijinks.
For the role play, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL with a dark past.
I'm going to be a fake news reporter. Who are the pipe dream guests you want to have on in 2023?
Man,
I think I would like to have on Bob Gates,
I would love to have a Rob Joyce,
Tony Thomas,
Greg Vogel.
Greg Vogel. Yeah, absolutely. Who else? I mean, there are a couple people who are like NSC level, former directors, former JSOC and SOCOM commanders.
Like Bob Gates would be sick. Bob Gates.
Yeah, Bob Gates would be really good. Yeah. I think any of those guys would be really interesting to have on the show and kind of get that like high level perspective. I kind of like fanboy out over the people who are more unknown. You know, yeah. I tend to, because
I would love to have somebody from the Arkansas National Guard that was in Iraq in their I don't know if it was in their armored unit, whatever those Bradleys or tanks or whatever the hell they were, those dudes were getting it on, and nobody knows about them. No, I would love to have some more conventional dudes on, because those dudes were getting it on. Some more like Marines that weren't like Force or MARSOC. I think that we have a love affair. Our country has a love affair with special ops. But there is the conventional forces were getting it on to a degree that people just don't get. And I would love to have those guys on.
I would like to have Chris Miller on the show,
Yeah.
who was acting Secretary of Defense towards the end of the Trump administration. He's an interesting guy. Those are some of the those would be like the bigger names, I guess, that go after.
Like the SEAL Team 6 guy we're having on has not done an interview.
He's a cool guy. He's
Yeah.
an interesting guy.
Yeah.
I tend to think the ones that I really enjoy are the one when you can kind of like pull these people out of the ether that no one's ever heard of and the stories that no one's ever heard of. I really enjoy that.
When are you guys going to have one of 24th STS-CCT guy on the show? I wonder.
So we're talking to a dude who's
I have a
combat control.
I have a CCT scheduled. I don't think he was STS, but
So we have a guy who wasn't he was a PJ, and he was an A-10 pilot too after, one of Chad's homies.
oh, okay, that would be
So
cool.
we're trying to lock him down for probably summertime sometime.
That'd be great. One of the guys asks if there can be a Discord Idiot Roundtable episode in 2023. So I'll say this: that would fit in very well with the theme of episode 200.
Right, yeah.
If we were to get all the Discord Idiot Roundtable going, and we'll have to put a little bit of thought into how to do that. You guys dialing in,
Yeah.
and maybe we can bullshit. We can live stream some games or something like that. Well, let's conversate about that a little bit in the Discord and figure that out.
Let that ruminate.
Any way to get more Air America pilots? Possible. I've spoken. When I got Neil, that was through the Air America Association.
Yeah.
And I can go to them and see if they have anyone else they can.
We
drop
can reach
on
out maybe through China Post One also. I mean, it's challenging because Vietnam era guys are getting older. Not too old, but older. So, and again, it's one of those things. Well, obviously, Air America Association, those guys will be vetted.
Yeah. Where do you guys see the Team House going in the next 5 years? Any big milestones you are focused on for future growth? I think we talked a little bit about it. Definitely hitting 100,000 subscribers is a big milestone. There are certain milestones we'd like to hit, just being real about it with ad revenue on YouTube and Patreon subscribers to get it to a certain point where we could then financially devote more time to this.
Yeah.
Would, I have 4 or 5 jobs. I would like to narrow it down.
I don't have
to
any.
Dave,
I got laid off for the holidays.
I got some work for you.
Yeah.
Christmas.
Got
Yeah.
some things for you. As we are able to grow the Team House, I would like to do this. And the high side, the website, the news site that I'm working with Sean, I'd like to do that. Those 2 things full time, have that be my full time job eventually. So I guess that's sort of my personal / Team House goal.
JB Ortega's been around for a minute because he says, I remember somebody said they'd wear a Sailor Moon costume on a dare a while back.
For a certain milestone.
Yeah, it was. It was
The-
if we got 100,000 subscribers.
I'm pretty sure it was
or something like
50,000.
I'll get a Team House giraffe
that.
tattoo.
You can
if
go
we
back
only
and
hit
you can go
100,000.
back and dig that up and get back to me.
I'll get a Team House giraffe tattoo that you can see predominantly on our merch, available in the link down below.
Yeah.
For 100,000.
Well, actually, that's pretty funny because someone asked the question, when are you guys going to start selling merch? Because I would love to buy a shirt with a black market giraffe.
I can't believe you just said that.
That's
Wow,
an
what a
amazing
coincidence. That definitely wasn't me writing that. But you can get it right here. And the link is in the description below.
Teespring, right?
Yeah.
Are we still on Teespring?
Yeah, the link is right in the description.
How did the graphics come out? Because the first time we did
These
it,
ones look pretty good,
the
man.
first time we did it, the graphic, it came out kind of faded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the orange and the logo was a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little off. Someone asked the question. I love and hate this question, guys. When is the next Deckard book? And as I've said before, it's halfway written, and I would love to dedicate the time to.
I read some
finishing
of it. It's pretty good.
It's I will get it done one day, but it remains in the works for now.
Jack's too busy living the Deckard life.
Yeah, exactly. His tactical sweaters. His triple alt sweaters.
I have several now. Ever thought about interviewing a former terrorist? Yes. I would be interested in interviewing like somebody who was, in a terrorist organization, like somebody who was in ISIS or something and came out of it. It's a little dicey in more ways than one. Some of those people who claim to be de-radicalized are not de-radicalized.
Yeah, they're just on
all.
the PR side of it now.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, yeah, what I was doing was wrong, but the reasons were right.
They're not really. Yeah, they're exactly. They're just like kind of like going around doing speaking engagements.
Right.
It's like, hey, like, like people. We have this like conversation in America now where like people say like, you have to be anti-racist and you have to do the work and all this sort of stuff. It's like, well, if you join a group like ISIS that's like keeping sex slaves and sawing people's heads off. Like, you kind of have to do the work to get past all of that. It's not like that's just something you leave behind. Like, we're putting that into this little chest and closing it and putting the lock on there.
Yeah.
But this is a do-over. We're pretending that never happened.
No,
it doesn't work like that.
Like, to call and say, I got duped. Like, I was in a vulnerable position in my life, and I got duped and sold into a cult, which it essentially is in a way. That's one thing, but to say, well, like America's not that great, and I thought these guys were okay, and I'm not 100% on board with what they're doing, but their message is good. It's like, that doesn't work.
Yeah. Short answer, yes. Longer answer, all of that.
Yeah.
Depends.
We're not supporting the opposition here. Right. We're not giving a platform to somebody who's batshit
You know
crazy.
he's good, an IRA guy.
And the women are more psycho than the men.
I'd like an IRA guy.
Yeah, so years ago, I explored the idea of going to Ireland and trying to interview IRA guys.
I thought you were going to join the IRA.
No, I was not going to.
Oh, okay.
And I had an interesting conversation with an Irish guy in an Irish bar that I will not name, and he told me that
Ireland's 32.
He said it is possible if you want to do that. You can go over there. There are possibilities, and he's like, the way that'll happen is like you'll be in a pub, you'll be met by somebody, and they will literally like black hood over your head and stuff you into a car and drive you, and you will interview people. You will not know their names. You'll just hear their voices, and you will be there with a hood over your head interviewing them.
I'd be okay with that, with the exception of like the mouth. Like you've probably never been like hooded, but being hooded sucks. Like it sucks. Like, I'm not a claustrophobic person. You can't be if you're a diver, but being hooded sucks. So like, and you're building up all that carbon dioxide and everything else, like, so as long as they cut out your mouth hole, that'd be okay. But to be hooded for hours of interviews, like we've all been hooded and thrown in a car trunk at one point in time.
Sure, who has, just for fun.
Yeah, it's how you get your kicks. But you also realize that, like,
So I would definitely be interested.
They can't just come on Zoom.
So a couple of people have said for the CCT, One's Ready is an organization that we should reach out to.
Okay.
Like 3 people have mentioned that. Kyle Morgan would be cool as fuck.
Kyle Morgan's a Delta guy?
AF.
Yeah.
Ed Calderon.
These guys, they're big names and they do good interviews. It's just, they've been on a ton of shows. Kyle Morgan, not really, because he just got out. He did Sean Ryan's show. Calderon's been on a lot of pods, so it's like...
Yeah. It is not that we...
I've had people ask me about, like, this guy, that guy, and even like, well, I don't mean to, like, besmear anybody. Like, even, like, Pat McNamara has done a lot of podcast interviews, and so... I'm not saying like any of those guys are not worthwhile to interview.
Or not welcome.
Or not welcome.
Right.
But if I have to choose, I'm going to choose the people you've never heard of before. Like that's an intentional choice on my part.
And even when we have Pat on, like we want to do an interview that he hasn't done before.
Yeah.
and we, that's the thing, is that we want to bring new content to people. So when we don't have on a lot of the very popular people, it's not
Can you
because
pass me the Macallan, please?
I can.
Thank you.
It's not because we don't love these dudes.
Yeah, it's not like I don't like them or I think they're bad or something like that.
No, listen, I like the popular guys because it means numbers. It means numbers for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I sexy up the thumbnails.
It's just that they've told their stories. They've told their stories, and we want to produce unique content. And so, like, when we have them on, if we have them on, we want to talk to them about things that they haven't had an opportunity to talk about before.
Yeah. And I mean, it does happen. Like, we'll have the same guests as like Combat Story or
sometimes there's some overlap.
Yeah,
but we'd like to avoid it. That's like the SEAL Team 6 guy that I've been busting Jack's balls about for like ever, right? Like a year.
There's another one?
No. But I'm just saying I wanted a SEAL Team 6
Oh,
guy.
yeah,
like
yeah.
an enlisted SEAL Team 6 guy.
and so like Pat and Shrek and all the guys you think of that have been on a lot of other pods, like, we love those guys. We value those guys immensely. We just, for us, it's often about like showing a different side, even though it doesn't give us the numbers that some of those other shows do. We just want, we want people like KC and Marty and Matt DeVoe and these people that you would never hear from otherwise. Like, we love the war stories, and we love the dudes who did it 100%. It's
like I've said it before with Jack and you, like the way we do things, it does hamper our growth a little bit, but it's by design, right?
Yeah.
It's like we do that.
I think it's better in the long run.
I completely agree.
So one of our Patreon members, Pyrite Hunter, asks, can a person add website addresses to a talk, i.e. follow-up, info presented, or maybe pics posting for clarification? I say that as several of the folks interviewed brought up interesting stuff that I and maybe others would dig researching. I also wanted to add clarified documents and details myself. Great year, love the show, and keep them coming. So oftentimes there are links we put down in the description of the YouTube videos. If you check that out, definitely look down there if you're looking for more information. As far as like pictures, I could be a little bit more diligent with that, and I should also probably work with UD in like making sure that you get those pictures, all of those pictures, and we can pull up some maps and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And then what we can do is load it into the TriCaster, and you can like bring some of that stuff up during the show.
That's like another thing that's it's a little bit easier if you do it
Post-production.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff does, I think, end up on our Patreon at some point.
Yeah.
But in our Patreon, like, it's not a lot. It's like $5, right?
$5.
Yeah. Patreon.com/theteamhouse. Go and subscribe. It's $5, and the biggest perk is you get ad-free episodes.
Yeah.
Ad-free video and audio, whatever you like it.
Yep. And then there's some bonus stuff in there. And if you support the Patreon at the highest level, you get an invite to our Christmas party as well.
Right on. Did any patrons come to the Christmas party?
I think so, yes.
Nice.
Our Christmas party was baller, by the way.
Yeah, it was great.
We had some... we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then
Adam showed up. Justin showed up.
Alana.
Josh, Zach.
Les.
Yep.
And then the after party was here in the studio, smoking cigars and drinking until like 2 a.m.
Cigars wasn't the only thing I think people were smoking.
Oh, yeah. Pots.
Really?
Jack was on weed.
I don't know.
Marijuana? No, someone, a fan of the show may have given me one of these gummies that had narcotic substances in it. I was duped. I was duped. That's what happened. No, it was a lot of fun, and I hope see everyone next year. G. Higgs says, longtime listener here. Thanks for the great show. I always wondered, did Jack do the voiceover for the intro in a deep voice? So yeah, again, no, that was Ian Scotto. Serious question. Any interview tips, tricks that you have found useful? You guys have an uncanny ability to get interviewees to open up and make them feel comfortable without making the interview feel scripted. Thanks again. So interview techniques, I mean, I think Just listen to what people are saying. And if there is, don't let them just blow by something that's interesting. Tease that out of them. Say, "Oh, hold on, tell me more about that." I can't remember if I so much use it on this show or not, but like a good technique is always to get people to rehash. Like if they say something that sounds pretty interesting or amazing, stop them and say, "Hold on. So what you're trying to tell me is such and such and such," and have them like rephrase it to make sure you understand what they said. I would say that works sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, another thing I think is no matter who we have on, if they have a book out, Jack and I have always, either Jack or I have always read their book. And so, understand that like when somebody writes a book, even if it's about their life, they've researched it. They've, talked to other people about it. They've done these things. Then they write the book, it's on paper, and then they forget about it, right? So one of the important things a lot of times is for us to take notes and honestly to remind people about their own story or to point out things because people have lived it. It reminds me of, I think it was Groucho Marx who said, "I'd never want to be a member of a club who would have me as a member," right? It's the idea that people, whatever you've lived, that's normal to you, right? And so these people who have lived these extraordinary lives, they don't understand sometimes how extraordinary it is, even the smallest details. So it's like Jack said, is that a lot of times people will tend to blow by things because it's just, they've told that story to their friends, their family, or in a bar or whatever. And so they just blow by it because that was just that day. And when you can stop them, and this is one of the reasons we interrupt people sometimes, because what they're about to blow by is a much deeper and a much richer story than, not that they realize, but that they remember. And one of the greatest things about, I think, like doing these interviews on the show is sometimes when Jack or I interrupt somebody, or not even interrupt them, but ask them a specific question about something they just said, and they go, "Oh, that's a good question." And then they go into it deeper, and we get a much richer side of that story. We get a much more personal experience, because that's really what we're trying to do, is capture a history on a personal level. So it's really, listening to what somebody's saying, and then picking out like these things that they might just be skipping over, because even though it was an amazing thing or a phenomenal moment, and people in general, especially people in the military and the intelligence community, I think, tend to be pretty humble people. And so if you ask them about an award, or you ask them about actions that led to an award, they're gonna give it to you in the briefest, most humble form they can. But if you dig down, you realize how much meat is there and what these people did, that they would never tell you without prompting, because they are servants, because they are humble. And anybody who's won an award will say, other people have done things. Like, who can look at like Chapman and say anything that they've done compares to that, right? And I think that's what we tend to do, is we compare ourselves to everybody else out there. And yeah, nobody's gonna like be able to compare themselves to that. But what they did is amazing regardless.
Gunnar Wright says, Metatronic Technologies in Asheville. I got a solution to end this death and overdose. Get back to me. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I think that's a troll.
Tomes says, would be cool if you had a guest and do a rewatchable series every few months. For example, have an expert in the field and comment on a show or movie you all watched pre-recording. It would be fun to watch and also help put reality and true history behind dramatized stories. In some cases...
Is that doing like a reaction?
Yeah, I don't really like reaction videos. I feel like it's like low-hanging fruit. But in some cases, like if you had a guest and like the movie is about something he was in, I would say, yeah, that might be,
Yeah.
that would be worthwhile.
I do think it would be fun to do reaction movies on action movie. Like, an example, Bullet Train, right? Done by the same guy who did John Wick. Great movie, fun movie. It's on Netflix. Check it out, Brad Pitt. Like, tons of cameos. Fun movie. But there were a few things with the gunplay that I was like, why? Like, why is this magazine in there and the weapon's not like, well, like, why? So reaction videos sometimes would be fun. Just saying. You know, when a dude has
I'm
a
not
double,
against them.
when
They
a
could be
dude has a
fun.
double barrel shotgun and he chambers around, it's like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Anyway.
I mean, if we can shit on stuff and make it funny,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tome says,
Because I've seen some reaction videos. I'm not gonna name who. That they don't really shit on stuff. Like they just like this is.
Oh no, it'd be like Mystery Science
And
Theater
it's like,
3000.
come on,
Like I'd shit on
it's
it.
It's not great. It's shit.
Yeah. Rick Lamb would love to hear about his firefight in Korea Plus Desert One and firefight in the DMZ in Korea.
okay. Tome says, also consider bringing on OSS Society. They do good stuff and are well connected. Happy to link you with the president.
Jack is an
Well,
OSS guy. Jack's
We
CIA.
have our OSS Society coin from the dinner this year right here.
And Jack has the pictures in the in his tux.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cute.
Carpenter 37 still waiting on Jack to publish Drowned, a case for disbanding the Navy SEALs.
Oh my God. There are so there's one more Patreon question, but a little sidebar on this. I was thinking a little bit today about like my favorite like internet conspiracy theories about me. And there are these people on like social media who like have, first off, I don't understand why I live rent free in their mind. Like it's very odd to me. I'm kind of like a nobody. But conspiracy theories include I was a operator who joined the SAS. There is one that Navy SEALs have put a hit out on me. I heard that
Jesus,
one
that's
recently.
aggressive.
I am a paid CIA shill. I am a paid JSOX shill.
Those are both. I can confirm those.
And then the other is that I'm also a paid FSB shill.
Oh no shit! So you're working for
Oh,
everybody.
depending on your political, where you stand.
Holy smokes.
I am any one or all of those things. I am like the ultimate Manchurian candidate.
Jesus Christ! You're like in everyone's pocket.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing about that is like, when you sell out, you're supposed to get rich. So
Yeah, where the fuck's the checks at?
Yeah,
guys?
yeah.
Send us the check.
Joe Delaney says, I am a couple of episodes behind, so I apologize if this has been covered, but I'd love to hear about reactions and feedback on Jack's CIA Russia story. Having followed y'all since the beginning, I would have been more surprised had something like that not been going on, but I wonder what you've learned from the response thus far. It was an awesome piece of work, and imagine you've heard from all sorts of fascinating folks. I would say the response, tremendous public interest. As far as like official response, there is no official response other than a denial. Behind the scenes, I've heard that some members of the intelligence community found it it was well received, and it definitely gave them a chuckle, as it's a big, yet another big fuck you to Russia.
Yeah, because it's a positive story for the CIA.
But otherwise, the silence has been pretty deafening.
Like the CIA is doing something right for once. You know what I mean? Like they shouldn't. I get why they need to deny it. I get why they need to deny it, but
Yeah, the game is the game.
Did you get
So,
those? No.
do we have any?
Yep, we do. Let me,
chat questions.
Yep. KX, thank you. Please get in touch with Jim Angleton's ghostwriter Edward J. Epstein for a chat. Pretty sure he's in New York City. David Maynor, thank you very much. His favorite episode was Ryan English. Also, no tuxedos for the year in review.
Next year, I had to buy a tux for that OSS dinner, and it pushed me. I told Sean Naylor this at the dinner. That it pushed me into this new level of adulthood that I didn't want to be in. I feel like I got to this like new level. I'm like, I don't want to be here. Like what? The dinner was fun, but I didn't want to be a tux owner. I feel like it does something to you as a person.
That just makes you bond. James Bond. Also, thanks, David. Check out Cyberary with David and Ryan English. They do some podcasts on there. They do some great stuff about cyber. They have some great learning tools on there, too, if you're interested in cybersecurity. That's cyberary.com.
Sponsor us.
Yeah. That's a free one, Dave, because we love you. RS, he said Jersey Shore, New Jersey.
Oh, get the fuck! Come on.
Where I used to vacation there as a kid.
Oh,
I used to get drug on family vacation at the Jersey Shore.
That's beautiful.
Oh, it's
I've been
horrible.
drunk at the Jersey Shore a few times.
I wasn't drunk. I was a kid.
Even worse. Yeah, you can't even drink.
So, just some people who are chiming in. Semper Fi EDC guy says you can pretty easily get some ex-cartel guys if you wanted. That would be fun. In fact, this is what I think a cool React show would be. Remember, we've been talking about this for years, where we do like the Hitman's Roundtable or whatever.
Put it together.
But
Put it together.
Where we have some mafia dudes,
Yeah, I can get a
some
mafia
military
dude.
snipers, all these different people, and we do clips of like assassination type videos, and we talk
you
about
react to it?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
See, I thought
where it's
that-
coming from different angles.
Oh, okay. See, I thought your idea was just to have the round table and everyone just talk about
How they'd kill somebody.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to do that if in the context of movies.
Definitely. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yes, I am a connoisseur of being kidnapped. KX, I prefer a microfiber gag myself. Hey, man, as long as you can get that safe word out, or
Yeah, whatever works for you,
If you're
bro.
gagged, you can't use your safe word, so you gotta have something in your hand to drop. We all know the
Snap
deal.
your finger.
Michael Fink, Seal, Ground Branch, and at Ground Zero as it happened. That's a lot. I haven't heard of Michael Fink. I don't know if you guys have.
No. What's the relationship?
Jackson said, or Micah Fink, Seal, Ground Branch, and at Ground Zero as it happened.
Oh no. Sounds like a pretty incredible guy, but no, I don't know him.
Yeah.
Look it up.
And
Reach
Shrek
out.
never gets old, just saying. And we're not saying these guys get old. We're not saying that at all. We're not saying, oh, man, they've told the story a million times. We just want to bring people something they can't find anyplace else. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we get Delta guys. We get other SMUs. I mean, I guess
We have a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
Army Special Operations guys scheduled.
Yeah. I would like to see an Ed interview by guys who know military intel world. I've mostly seen him with the more casual interview crowd. Ed
Calderon. I mean, he's been on Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan's a former
He's
SEAL.
been on like Joe Rogan and stuff multiple times.
Yeah.
Like there's
He's been on Friedman's
Conventional
podcast,
EOD would be good. Yeah. EOD, man, those folks had a very thankless job out in Iraq and Afghanistan.
yes, I know some EOD people that I could hit up.
What do you guys think about John McPhee? Stud. I mean, what else? What can you say about?
Yeah, I don't know the guy.
I don't know the
I
guy.
don't know the
either.
guy personally.
Yeah, I
so-
don't either. But everything that I've seen, stud. I mean, an American
Shrek?
hero. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a ton of episodes with Ryan, and Ryan's great. Like, Ryan is almost as good as us. I love Ryan. Ryan's a great guy.
Yeah,
Awesome
we
guy.
love Ryan and definitely watch his show.
Yeah,
it's
it's
not.
a great
He
show.
doesn't take anything away from us to watch or listen to Ryan.
We
and
we have an interview on the channel with Ryan.
Actually watch that interview because Ryan is one of those people who doesn't get to. He interviews everybody, but doesn't get to tell his story that often.
Getting
And-
shot up in his Apache in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Like some pretty gnarly stuff.
Yeah. If you're going to watch his interview, watch it on our channel and not his. But for everything else, check out his channel.
Yeah. No, Ryan's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome guy.
Yeah, we can't say enough good things about Ryan. He's an amazing human being. He has a great show.
He's just a good guy. Like, I email back and forth with him about stuff and
Yeah.
ad stuff and all that stuff. He's a good egg.
If you could get Mike Logico of the PISF and the organizer of the PI Joint U.S.PI Military Maneuvers, that would be sweet.
PI meaning Philippines?
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it means. But he that was JP Ortega. He's active duty though, so that might be tougher.
Yeah. Active duty guys is like almost impossible, and I have tried to work with public affairs. I have a whole rant about public affairs, and it's not just the fault of public affairs. It's the command.
Yeah.
It's ultimately the command that's saying, we don't support podcasting. You know, it's like that. Well, what it is that the commander feels like I'm supposed to get the press, not this E5.
Right.
Why is this
right.
guy going on a show? Right.
So we have somebody who we're going to try and get for the summer who is active duty currently. She is a former Apache pilot and a 160th pilot, and she's getting out.
Believe me, there are multiple people I'm waiting for to retire. There is one person who I'm waiting to retire who's a SF. There's another person I'm waiting to retire who spent decades doing spooky stuff. So like there are numerous people on my list that I'm waiting for them to put in their retirement papers, and when they do, I think some of them will come on the show.
You spoke about your Ukraine article, right? Somebody asked.
Somebody asked about it. Yeah.
The backstory is it's almost as crazy as the actual story. Which, I'm sorry, you guys probably don't get to hear. Not yet, anyway.
Dave, will you take Andy's advice and consider writing your book? Look, the simple fact is my memory isn't good enough to write a book. Like I've had, I mean, these guys know that. Like I've had so many fucking TBIs that sometimes I forget even what branches I served in. Let's see here. Would love to hear some more about TF626 and JSOC spooks getting out of hand in the early GWAT.
Yeah, more to follow. I definitely, yeah.
Uh-oh.
One of Jack's admirable interview skills is helping out highlighting important angles or points for the guests that are really having a hard time or not good at being interviewed.
Thank you, sir.
Hashtag battle buddy.
Thank you for the support. Instead of most of you shit talkers in the comments.
Yeah, I mean,
in the
we
chats.
could talk about that a little bit.
How did Jack and Dave meet?
Oh, we met through a Ranger meetup in New York City, like probably close to 10 years ago. So yeah, it was like a Ranger get together, met there, and sort of stayed in touch, and then that led into years later trying to do some of the start up like a gaming company, and that proved quite difficult, and then spun into doing this. So here we are.
Here we are. Like 10 years later, 11 years later. Have you ever been able to get any Det A veterans? Where's the focus of their Det A time?
Yeah, we had
yeah.
Bob Charest was
Yeah.
Det A. He's on the show. And our guest coming on the show on Tuesday, Pat McNamara, those pictures of him in Berlin,
with that sweet mullet?
that's the unit that came after Det A. So Det A got compromised because of Desert One and all the press that came out. So they had to fold the unit, and they started up a new unit called PSSE, or Pishy, I think it's normally pronounced. That's what Pat Mac was there in Berlin. So I hope we get him to talk a little bit about his experiences
Full
there.
circle.
Yeah.
Jack, is this Substack the primary place to read your work?
It will be. Right. Yeah. I mean, I say it will be. Right now, I mean, I write for connectingvets.com like multiple times every week. My stuff, I produce podcasts for Stars and Stripes that come out every other week. And the high side, you will see pieces by me and or Sean every month. And those will be like in-depth, like investigative pieces.
I think the best place to find Jack is probably Twitter. Like, that's where you update the most.
Follow my shit posting.
Yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
post your regular non-shit
Yeah.
posting.
My stuff ends up on
I sometimes retweet Jack or D.
Yeah, randomly. I see it. Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much what I do on Twitter. I'm horrible at social media. I stay off it.
I'd like to say something about the commenters. For the most part, everyone's dope. Everyone's great. We love you guys.
You're not going to pull a
here.
Dave Park and be like, I'm just humbled to be here.
No, I'm not.
See,
I love being here. But like, when we have a lady on, act like you've seen a woman before.
Yeah.
And don't make
yeah.
stupid comments about like, I'd like to breed with her was one I remember that was horrific.
Did I ever get a I want to breed with him?
I don't think
online?
so. No.
Fuck you guys.
Sorry. So
Yeah.
if you want to breed with somebody, Dave's open for it.
It's funny
but-
how that works. There's never like a slew of women that are like, I want to steal Jack Murphy's seed.
Yeah.
Like you never hear that kind of stuff.
Like,
right?
what do you think's gonna happen? They're gonna read the comments and be like, "Oh my god, that's the guy." For
That's
me.
him. That's
Let me hit him
that's
up.
my forever person.
Like, I get it, dude.
I just
Girls are
slide
pretty
into the DMs.
sometimes. You know what I mean? And they're nice to look at. But
They're
just
smart.
act,
They're aggressive.
all that
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
act like a fucking human being. That's all.
I remember one person who left the comment and he was like, "Oh man, that female is beautiful," and I was like, she has a name, right? and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know what her name is," and I was like, "It's the first word in the title of the video is her name." Like,
I didn't know her name. Man.
This is me going light, because there's other commenters can go fuck themselves too. But
Yeah, you can bag on us all day long. If you're doing war movie reviews, this KGM, you gotta do it by having James Laporte on it back. He used to do it for Vanity Fair, and it was hilarious because he so politely destroyed 98% of the movies.
oh, I didn't know he did that. That's pretty cool.
see, like a lot of places do it though. I'm with.
Yeah,
you
that's
on
the
that.
thing is
Yeah.
there's so much of it out there.
It's easy to do, but it is enjoyable if it's done well. It's like it could be good. It could be fun. You guys should do. You and Alex Hollings, who's going to be on the show.
The
this
Batman.
month. Yeah,
We've
do
been
that.
talking about that for like years at this point.
It's a
Well,
terrible
when
movie.
Alex comes on, we're definitely doing Maverick. We are definitely
He's
doing.
coming on.
I know we are
end of
definitely
month.
doing Top Gun Maverick because I want to hear his stuff on that. Arno, are these those 5 jobs, Dave? KX, he did say he had 5 jobs. What jobs? I don't know.
I was talking about having 5
Jack,
jobs.
Jack he's an Uber delivery guy. He does a ton of shit.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. His OnlyFans.
Yeah.
It ain't much, but it's honest work.
Scott Ritter took some shots at Jack Murphy's latest story. I mean, people have opinions, right?
Yeah.
Ritter.
I did. Someone forwarded me the video. Yeah.
Scott Ritter's the who?
He
Who's on
was.
He was the UN.
Yeah,
we had
he-
Scott on.
Yeah.
Like it was.
Wasn't he the?
Yeah, he was a UN weapons inspector. He was in the Marines, and I watched the video, and I think that there's not too much to say about it, honestly. I mean, what Scott had to say was essentially, if this is real, Jack Murphy wouldn't know about it. So since Jack Murphy knows about it, it can't be real, which is circular logic that makes no sense whatsoever.
He's
And-
an RT guy, right? Isn't he like?
And
an RT
then
guy?
he further went on to extrapolate that, but if it is real, he shouldn't have written about it. And like I really don't know how to respond to that, or it's a sort of like it's like I said, it's a circular logic that you really there's nothing to rebut.
Right.
I mean, look, Scott is totally entitled to his opinion. My perception of it was that he had a lot of anger. Not towards me personally, but more to the CIA generally.
Sure.
And like I can't like unpack that for him. Like that's kind of his business.
Yeah, I mean Scott Ritter's a rat. We know that.
Well, he's
Scott
Allegedly.
he's entitled to his opinion, but
Not because of that. I mean, he's just like he worked for RT. He's been
Yeah, I mean,
allegedly.
people got to earn a paycheck. Like we had Scott on the show. He was
Yeah.
a great guest. Like he has opinion. I mean, look, Jack and I don't agree on everything either. So like it's you and I don't agree with on. I mean,
Yeah.
people.
My opinion is Scott Ritter's a rat. Sorry, Scott.
We cracked it. Jack is infiltrating the chat to sell samurai swords to old fat guys.
You got it.
Battlingblades.com Team House for 20% off.
And honestly, guys, like
I've probably been drinking too much to be playing with the samurai.
you really
sword.
have.
Yeah.
Like that's a loaded weapon, and you've been drinking. But
You want to see me take the cork off the
I
top of
don't.
that
No, I
bottle?
Not even-
really
You sure?
don't.
Not even-
You sure?
Yeah. But check out Battling Blades. They have a lot of like really cool stuff. Honestly, you'll check it out. You'll love it. And when you check out Battling Blades, use the Team House for 20% off your order. So Danny just asked, did Jack have any rebuttal to Scott Ritter's stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of it.
Yeah.
There's not much to rebut from my point of view.
Have you guys interviewed former Special Forces Fuerzas Especial? No, we have not. We haven't had anybody from Mexico.
No, I'd be very interested in that. Years ago, it was like one of those projects. I got in touch with somebody who was in Mexican SOF, and he was really being very helpful. And it was just one of those, like, it was like would have been one of those big projects, like deep dives, like I've done into like Kurdish counterterrorism group, or I did into like Special Forces Det K or Det A. It was a big research project, and unfortunately, it's just one of those ones that didn't get off the ground for me. But I would love to have Mexican SOF on here. Yeah.
John Chico said Mo Morris, 375FO, and CAG. So as a guest recommendation.
What's
so
the name? Mo
Morris, Morris.
Yeah, man. Have them send us an email.
Yeah.
Slide into the DMs. We'd be happy to talk.
Eric Miaris, thank you for your very generous donation. He said you are amazing. Eric, you are amazing, man. You're incredible. You're an incredible human being. Ryan is a very humble, quiet dude. Met him in a SOB tactical event. Super low key dude. Yeah, Ryan, like, fucking amazing.
Good egg.
Yeah.
I love Ryan.
Yeah. What just happened here? It just okay. Did you guys see what Andy Stump and Jack Carr said about Matthew Cole? I did not.
No.
Yeah, right, yeah. I mean, Jack Carr's like, this guy's talking smack about the team guys. I mean, Stump's a little bit more diplomatic. Like, he had Cole on the show and stuff like that, and they were real civil to each other. They talked in circles. I love Stump, too. I'm not hating. Our show's better. But he had a little segment with Jack Carr, and Jack Carr's like, yeah, you had that guy on? Like, you could watch. It's like a 6-7 minute video. I don't know. I mean,
Look, I mean,
get
It's again, what is there to rebut? Like, and I've had this
Right.
conversation with other people as well. Like, hey, man, that's not right, or that's not accurate. It's like, okay, stop. Tell me point by point what's not accurate, and like, because whatever sort of journalism, whether it's something I wrote or something someone else wrote, it's like, okay, well, no, that's important. Tell me why it's not accurate. What are the counterfactuals? And when people just look at you with like dead eyes, like, then they can't answer.
They usually just say, like, oh, he's trying to sell books.
Okay, but that doesn't mean it's not accurate.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
That's the usual.
Where's the lie?
And there's that thing too that Stump and Carr are both great dudes, and have great shows, and personally for me, like, if somebody were to write something that like painted Rangers in a bad light, I would be defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not what was written were right or wrong, I would be defensive about it. If they wrote about Navy divers being like not I would be defensive. If they wrote about like we all tend to defend what's near and dear to our hearts. And if there are factual inaccuracies in Matt's book, which we didn't find, but that doesn't mean that other people might not see them, then they should bring those to light.
Yeah, that should have been the conversation.
Right.
Totally. I mean, I'd listen to a podcast that was like going through Matt's book. Whatever, picked the case, picked the chapter, and was like, no, this is wrong because of it, and like actually brought their side of it.
And
to
look,
it.
I understand that
There is nothing like
I understand
that
that
out
it's
there.
difficult to do that with Matthew Cole's book because so many of his sources were anonymous. And as a journalist, like, one of the worst things you can have is a source that will say something but not go on the record saying it. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be reported. But that also makes it hard to rebut, right? It makes it hard. It makes it hard to say, some people said something.
Well, I mean,
this is true.
like maybe a SEAL Team 6 guy that was on Red Team that heard, didn't hear Slab say, give me their heads, or give me some scalps, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Somebody who's actually there to be like,
right.
no, this isn't true, actually, this happened. Or,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I mean,
No, it's tough.
and
It's
the
tough
one
both
good thing
ways.
about anonymous sources is, like, they're actually willing to talk. But you're
Right.
right, it could get abused. You know
Right.
what I mean? I get it.
Right.
I mean,
No, and
that's up to the journalist.
Yeah.
Journalists to, like,
Right.
vet their sources.
Right, and I understand where they're coming from. Like, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like Jack says, like, if there's something to rebut, then rebut
Do
the
it.
facts.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you would do it if you had information, right? And some of your teammates were being thrown under the bus.
Yeah. I mean, I
You'd be the
had
first one to like rebut it for real.
I had an instance years ago now where a kid that was not in my platoon, but in the sister. So, well, anyway, he was on deployment with me in 2005. And he was telling a journalist that we were committing all sorts of war crimes. Oh, no, I'll have them in McAllen, but thank you, Dave. He was saying that our Rangers were committing all sorts of war crimes like executions and just like crazy stuff. This is almost like a direct quote. He told this journalist, "We killed the women because they bred them and the kids because they became them, being terrorists." He actually said that to them. Now, this is absolute bullshit.
Right.
Like, this has no factual basis whatsoever. I was on some of the ops this guy was describing. Our chain of command would not have stood for that kind of shit. It's not something that even entered into our heads that, like, oh, this is something that would have been okay and something that we should do. It's just 100% a lie made up out of whole cloth. And I told the journalist, I was like, listen, I was there. Like, this didn't happen. And this guy's like trying to blow smoke, trying to impress you. I don't know what he's trying to do. But stuff like that happens, man. And yeah, I mean, it pisses me off because it pisses me off because it's not true.
Right.
If it was true and someone was blowing the whistle on it, then so be it. Let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
But
So, like Matt said, he spoke to like 30 or 40 SEALs for the book over time. If you're hearing that from a single source, you want it corroborated by other sources that were there. You know what I mean? Like, that's your obligation as a legit journalist, right? That's the job. I'm a huge part of the job. That's wild. That's I don't know if they wrote about that, like just off single source, like, oh, this one guy said we did it just because they were breeding them and becoming them.
Right.
Like, that's insane to report on.
yeah, and that's when you really need to buckle down and do like your diligence on those types
Right.
of claims. I mean, especially when it comes to like war crimes, murders, sexual assaults, things like these are some of the most heinous crimes out there. You really have to do your homework on.
Right. And I think one of the big questions is people, if they read that, then they go, is this true? And if this is true, what do we do about it? And maybe, like, the average reader can't do that, but the leadership sure as hell should.
Well, I mean, in Matt Cole's book, he definitely goes after the leadership.
Yeah, he does. That's primarily who he does go after. Yeah. David Maynard, thank you very much, my buddy. Do you guys have any theories on what is really going on in the Nick Cage movie Willy's Wonderland?
What?
Why didn't Nick Cage say a single word in the entire movie? So I haven't seen that. Isn't that the one that was sort of based on the Five Nights at Freddy's?
I have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. So
I might be in the wrong stream, bro.
Yeah.
No, David Maynard never.
Oh, it's David. Okay.
Yeah. We will watch it and we will get back to you.
I watched The Northman last night. That was awesome. The Viking movie.
I gotta watch that. You
Yeah.
gotta watch Cleo on that. I'm telling you.
I will check it out.
You guys have no idea how much time we sit around and talk about movies and TV shows
and shitting on ones we don't like.
Yeah. Be interesting to hear about the 20-year Jay Lynch anniversary. 20-year reindeer anniversary. Man, I have a buddy that I wish that was in deep with the Jay Lynch. I wish he'd come on, but I don't think he will. But
Ask him.
I've asked him numerous times. Yeah, and I'm not going to push a friend who doesn't want to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Any chance of an SA Blue Badger on the pod? I mean, it's we'll do what we can do. The challenge with getting SIGINT people on the show and cyber people on the show is so much of the stuff they do is so much like they're part of SAPs generally, and even where like a lot of human stuff, human intelligence stuff gets rolled back, a lot of the SAP stuff just doesn't, and a lot of those, it's tough to get those guys on. It's really tough because they can't, like, their war stories are it's very hard for them to tell any stories without giving away, means and methods.
We've had some SIGINT guys on the show though. Read between the lines a little bit too, guys.
Yeah,
That's the funniest. Also a funny commenting thing when people comment, like trying to guess what units people are in.
Oh yeah.
It's like, no, it's definitely this. It's definitely that.
And then they get into fights with each other.
yeah. What was going on with JSOC on standby during the Afghanistan withdrawal, and why weren't they sent?
They were there. There are complaints that they weren't able to do as much as, maybe they thought they should have been permitted to, but I mean, they were there.
Don't speak too soon, Dave. They might start wanting your seed next.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, guys, I mean, I've asked Stumpf to come on the show. We had some emails back and forth because I read some comments.
Are you going to deploy the minions to go harass?
I am. So hit him up on Instagram and nicely.
Yeah, we would love to have
Tell him
stuff
to
on
come on.
because it's the same thing with Ryan coming on. Like, these are guys who have shows who
But
don't
they've never really told their
they
own
don't
story.
get to tell their stories, and we would
I
love
don't
to have
think
them
I've ever
on.
heard Stump go through his career.
Yeah,
Because he was an enlisted SEAL, SEAL Team 6, then an officer in Vanilla SEALs. So he's got some cool perspective for sure. I mean,
Yeah, seems like a smart guy.
Yeah.
We'd
We'd love to have him on. So hit him up and say, yo, Team House is the best podcast.
what can we expect? The Team House OnlyFans.
That's the Patreon. You want foot pics? Go on the Patreon.
Stick with me, stay with me, fellas. Calendar, just tasteful nudes.
That's it.
That's it.
We can pull that off.
Mods love to delete those comments with a shocking lack of due process. Do we? I mean, do we delete a lot of comments?
I'll delete a stupid comment. Yeah, I'll do it. I mean, that's want to blame me. You can blame me.
Do we lean left or right in the comments we delete if they're political?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I'll leave some stuff. I'll leave some.
Yeah, I don't know if we delete like if a person is on insulting the guest, like ragging on the guest,
That's
like we'll
definitely
delete
out.
that.
Yeah,
like,
that's definitely out.
Like, you can disagree with the guest, and if you disagree and you disagree politely, that's one thing. But sometimes people just get on and they're dumb and they insult.
There's no due process, guys.
This
These
is
are extrajudicial killings.
Yeah.
If we don't like what you're saying, go on. Straight to jail.
And I try to keep
Straight
it
to
like
jail.
if it sometimes becomes political in the chat, as long as you don't pop off too crazy.
Dude, it's the comments section, not a court of law. Like I don't know what to say.
And like another one, like going back to I want to breed with her. That's getting cut out, friend.
Why are you limiting their freedom of speech? You're violating their First Amendment rights,
I'm
D.
draconian, dude.
Don't you know how the Constitution works, bro?
I guess not. You know, what I mean?
Master of Ninjutsu would be interesting. We could have Stephen K. Hayes on. Or,
Dim Mak, the touch of
that
death.
would be Frank
Yeah.
Dukes. That would be Frank Dukes.
Where you
Dim
can
Mak.
you can touch the wall like this and kill the person
Yeah.
on the other side.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I don't know if it's still on, but The Last Dragon, Barry Gordy's, right? The Last Dragon was on Netflix not too long ago, and that's a great movie. But anyway,
I think there was a Patreon question I missed.
I think Isaac. Had a couple.
I know you told me to read the room that someone that was in ISA will never say they were, but have you ever come close to meeting one of them?
An ISA guy?
Maybe. By the
I
way,
haven't.
thank you for the show.
What's ISA?
I don't know.
There are times I don't feel like I'm allowed to ask my question because you guys have done incredible things, but still live at home. But I'm really happy you take the time to ask and answer my questions.
We still live at home?
I live in my home.
I live in my mom's basement.
I live here.
I
live in the studio.
I had a period when I got out of the army in 2010. I did have this period of like 2 to 3 months where I literally lived in my mom's basement playing video games.
Dude, you told me when you got out of the army and you went to go get a job at Domino's.
Yeah.
Like you're not qualified.
Yeah, as a delivery man.
Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, and they said I wasn't qualified.
You have a pulse and a driver's license?
Yeah.
Like, come on in, dude.
Yep.
That's wild.
Dude, I was like it was like the whole like John Rambo speech in the movie. I was in charge of millions of dollars of equipment. Now I'm nothing.
What was that self-defense expo thing Jack was on a while ago? It was a segment for some channel.
Oh, I mean, years ago, I did a thing with Jim West. where he was beating me up and throwing me across the floor of this restaurant.
Jim West is like legit the real deal.
Yeah, he was beating me up for but we did it for you guys. We did it for the viewers. I take the pain so you don't have to.
Quetzalcoatl's, thanks. If you had to pick a book from all of your guests this year, what are you picking? Oh my God.
I would pick The Main Enemy for this year. That's probably the number one. But I mean, I was actually looking through it through I kind of like, I guess it's self-indulgent, but I tally up all the books I read at the end of the year just out of my own curiosity. And I read, I think, like 9 or 10 books for the Team House.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that I mean, so many really good ones. And I'm glad that this show kind of like forces me to read them. But The Main Enemy is the one that really stands out, where it's like, holy shit.
So I would, since I didn't read The Main Enemy, I would say, just in terms of understanding, like, we had a lot of great biographies, but I would say Operation Pineapple Express, just because it really covered a time in history, like a time in history that hasn't really, that nobody's paid attention to in detail. It's sort of like the fall of Saigon, for that reason, I think. And then let's see here. Sorry guys, we've been here for a bit, so I'm just gonna kind of scroll through and see. Jack took one for the Team House. Yeah. Oh, this is a good question, and something we've actually talked about on numerous occasions. Would you guys get into the real story about the men who stare at goats?
Yeah, Ron Johnson wrote the book, and I don't think I read the book, but I watched his documentary, and I thought it was a little silly. There's a point in the documentary where he's like, it's all very like mysterious and sinister, right? And he's points out to this like strange hexagonal shaped tower on Fort Bragg. Like, what's going on in there? It's the Halo Wind Tower. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Ron, come on, man, calm down. So there are a bunch of people out there. I one of my bucket list interviews was actually Jim Shannon, who was the 1st Earth Battalion guy. He sadly died a few years ago. There are people who are in the remote viewing program that I could reach out to and potentially interview on the show. I was like very, very interested in that program.
Yeah.
And like I read like every book, every memoir I could find written by people who were in it. And some of them were pretty good, pretty interesting.
Yeah. There's also, for those of you who are interested in that kind of stuff, that and what the CIA, like MK Ultra, and was it Bluebird or Mockingbird?
Blue Book was the UFO stuff.
No, it was like Bluebird. I think it was Bluebird. But so most of that, the CIA destroyed most of that stuff. Yeah. Like, they destroyed it. But there were file boxes found like years after that were kind of stashed away that then were preserved. And so if you go to the CIA's reading room, their FOIA reading room, you can read a lot of that stuff. A lot of this stuff, about, their paranormal research, their brainwashing research, the MK Ultra, like a lot of that stuff is very interesting stuff.
I think what we need to ask Tim Weiner too is JFK stuff, because I'm getting into that too.
Yeah, because there's been like renewed interest and controversy around it, and he does write about it in his book. So yeah, we'll ask him about that when we have him on.
Somebody said Blue Light. No, that was something else.
Yeah, Blue Light was a counterterrorism program.
So like Project Artichoke, Project Bluebird, yeah, those are the things that you want to check out. Bluebird was a lot of their mind control stuff. But anyway, like a lot of that is in the CIA's FOIA in their reading room. You just go there on their website, and use a VPN. So,
Yeah, William's asking about if we have any other like South African or Rhodesian guys scheduled, and like I'd say I got most of the interviews I wanted on that subject. One person I've interviewed in the past that I would like to get on the show is Tim Bax, who is a Selous scout. He would be worthwhile getting on. There's another guy, actually, a little, memorial to Audis Ward, who was in 173rd Infantry Vietnam. Went on to serve as a medic with the Selous Scouts. Then he worked as a contractor down in Honduras, I believe. And then he went and was a career police officer in Memphis and retired out of there after, I don't know, 25 years or something like that. And COVID got him, unfortunately. Really nice guy, terrific guy. And yeah, I'm sorry he's not here.
So that's, other than people wanting more Jack Murphy Columbus stories, I think that's...
Columbus stories.
Colombia.
No, you don't want those stories. Put you to sleep. Oh, Columbus, Georgia stories.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Does this guy have like carnal knowledge or something like that? Like,
I believe
he's
so.
Asking about that.
I believe so.
Like-
I think he was in that room with you when you were trying to decide whether you're going to sleep with that girl or not.
There's not a room. It's a road on Victory Drive, and there's a thing called running the gauntlet, where you visit every strip club on Victory Drive.
Yeah.
And my team leader and I did that once upon a time.
Yeah.
Did you complete the gauntlet?
We completed the gauntlet, and I swear to, it sounds like I'm making this shit up, but we were at another bar beforehand, and we probably did like somewhere between 8 and 10 shots, each one a different liquor.
Memory lane?
No, it wasn't Menopause Lanes. Memory Lanes. There's some good Ranger stories there, but yeah, we did like somewhere like 8 to 10 shots, and then we went and ran the gauntlet, and holy Christ, oh my God. There's another, man, there's some stories that are too OPSEC. Some of that stuff may not have been legal, shooting guns out at the drop zone at 2 a.m.
That probably wasn't legal.
No, probably not. Yeah, Mischief Night out on Fort Benning with my squad leader. Yeah. Oh, there was one night. Yeah, one Mischief Night where it was me, a squad leader I will not name, several privates who also will not be named, and a regimental commander who will also not be named. And it can be
Jesus Christ.
it can be alleged.
It could be any regimental commander.
It could any. Who knows? I heard a story.
Just pick one of the many. during that period of
I
time.
heard a story about how this group of rowdy Rangers went and stole the regimental DUI flag off his front deck and made off with it in the night.
How dare they?
Out in that little, when We Were Soldiers once, and they show the Fort Benning like officer housing complex. He allegedly lived in that area somewhere. Yeah.
Somewhere in the vicinity.
Yeah.
Jack just incriminated himself.
It's past the statute of limitations.
so we're good.
Big Army can't get me now.
So that's about it for our year in review. Thank you very much for everybody. I actually, normally these get like 3,000. I think we might actually get up to 5 with this one in the next 2 weeks.
We'll have like
That's impressive when it's just like us bullshitting and not.
With
All
the audio too
will be
over.
revealed.
Well, yeah, my man. Oh man.
Ancient mysteries. Dark secrets.
All will be
Revealed for the first time. So, yeah, guys, one more time, thank you everyone who supports the show and watches the show and, does, spreading the word about us. Many of you, especially the people who subscribe to our Patreon, and it does absolutely keep the show going and makes it like as good as it can possibly be. I'm really proud of what these guys have done, what's been done with the show, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of incredible, and it's a thing now, like, people know about us for better or worse.
Oh yeah.
I still remember like our first the first couple months, like getting so excited when we got over 10 people
Like, holy
who watched
shit.
the show.
That's crazy.
And then over 100 people. Like when we got over 100 people watched the show, I was like, oh my god, like 100 people just watched this.
And it was like, you know, us sitting there getting drunk and there's like a white sheet hanging.
Yeah.
The craziest thing when I was a fan of the Team House, watching those early shows, where you have this like $10,000 piece of equipment, the TriCaster, and the walls are white. You have the drop cloth, you know, the sound blanket, and like you have a legit $10,000 piece of equipment. You could have done it for way less to begin with.
Yeah.
We could have. One of the two of us may have brought that up at one point in time, but I can't remember which one of
But
us
it's a
it
good
was.
thing that you did do it, because then I mentioned to Jack, I'm like, yo, you really need somebody to switch.
I was like a one man.
camera
I was like a one man band, like playing the drums, blowing in the flute.
Yeah.
I got a kazoo up my ass. You know, yeah. It was-
I remember seeing Jack just like stressing that first 5-10 minutes of the show, like getting up, rearranging the, like camera angles and stuff. But that's literally how I got here. Was just like, yo, you really need somebody to switch those camera angles, dude.
Ruben Snyder, in the Team House calendar, will we be able to find whether the carpet matches the drapes with Dave? Do you mean red or bald? Because I can give you an answer of both of those.
Yeah, Dave's
Join my OnlyFans.
Dave's hairless from the chin down.
That's all right, man.
All right. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Like and subscribe.
Shit, this
Please.
went on for 3 hours. Yeah, and we'll see you guys Tuesday with Pat McNamara, and then I can't even remember who we have lined up for Friday. Don't worry about it. One step at a
Yeah, I
time.
can't either.
Tuesday's right around the corner.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Yep, we'll see all you next time. Again, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, like it, all that good stuff. Patreon link is right down below if you want to support it.